And we're live right on time for once. Welcome everyone to the Thulian Transmission podcast. Today we have a very special guest on with us, Mimir's Brunnir. We have a few different things we wanted to talk. Falling into my usual trap of not muting the YouTube tab. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, that always scrambles my brain. Sorry, guys. So where were we? We have Mimir on today, and we've got some questions lined up for him, some topics we want to go over, and also later on we're going to open it up for a little bit of Q&A. So if you guys in the chat want to jot down some questions as we go, be sure to do so. Mimir, welcome, and thanks for coming on.
It's great to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. I think most of our fans are probably familiar with your work. We kind of have people that are typically in the more or less the traditionalist and pagan spheres tend to be our audience, and we also on the show kind of delve into a bit of late 19th century esotericism and that sort of thing on top of it all. So we've kind of we've got an audience that probably is pretty in tune with what you want to go into. But do you want to start out by telling us a little bit about your channel and how you got started?
Yeah, sure, if you want. Well, a few years ago, I wrote articles on various sites and a few small things, and I set up a website because I wanted to do something for myself. And I started writing a few articles about, obviously, more pagan and historical in general. I'm not, Mimmir's Brunnr wasn't just strictly heathen. It was just about our ancestral perspectives. And that's what attracted me to heathenism in the first place, obviously. And then I wrote a few articles. I wrote Consequence of Cowardice. And then I had somebody that followed me there, just sent me a message saying, do you want to make some videos? And I had a video tab up, but I hadn't got round to it. And I'm not a great editor, and that was Riss. And then me and Riss started chatting, and we got a few videos together. But it was Consequence of Cowardice, actually, that inspired him to write to me. And since then, and then we added, of course, Hallinder to the group, who does our music for us. Very kindly and exceptionally talented guy too, and so is Riss at editing, as you'll know from the videos. No, I can't take any credit for that. I just write and narrate. And yeah, and then Mimmir's Brunnr started to become its own thing, and we started to put some effort into it and try and get it going. And yeah, and here we are.
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that we talked about when we were talking about having you on is how visually powerful your videos are.
Yeah.
So you're able to you kind of have a bit of a powerful voice when you're narrating these videos. You really kind of like project you sort of project confidence, and then having those strong visuals along with that kind of creates this inspiring moment in each of your videos. And it's interesting too, because a lot of the videos that you do are quite short, right? I mean, I think I saw a couple things on your channel that are only like 1 minute and 20, and that's basically unheard of for our circles. But you're packing in like these powerful emotional messages a lot, in a really short time frame, and it comes off as something really unique and special.
Yeah, some of our videos we aim to make them short. It's about condensing. One of the things that I do when I write, especially if I'm being more poetic, and I say poetic because I'm not a poet, is trying to condense. So you've got this massive piece of information that you want to share, but if you can condense it down to this to its bare minimum, and like you say, with the brilliant visuals and music that Riss and Hallinder add, it can create quite a powerful or really powerful thing that just hits you and it's gone, right? So it leaves you, and then it gives you time to digest it. What have I just watched? What are they saying? You know what I mean?
Maybe even rewatch it, right? Maybe
yeah.
I'm guessing people probably rewatch your videos 3 or 4 times because they can, right? Unlike what the rest of us do, which are like 3-hour podcasts that nobody can even make it through. You're doing something that people can kind of take in really quickly and then share easily. It's not a big time investment to get others and even maybe friends and family or normie people to watch. and it just seems like a really good medium, or a really good format that you've put together.
Yes, one thing Oh, go ahead, Mimir.
No, carry on, please.
Well, I was just going to point out, like, one of the great things about really short, powerful content like your own is it's not only shareable, especially when it's topical, when it pertains to history, when it pertains to ancestry. I mean, this is something that anyone who's not completely self-hating can get behind and kind of learn about and pursue. Like, that's one of the things that drove me to your channel in the first place. Was I love our history. I absolutely adore our past and what we've accomplished. So with these short messages, with these really powerful things that are easily shared, I've shared easily these videos with some of the normiest friends I have, and they're like hungry for more. So I mean, it's timeless, I would say. A message like this, a message about your ancestry, about your past, heritage, tradition. This is all a timeless message that anyone can get behind. So yeah, kudos
definitely.
to that.
And also, it's like, so you guys were saying about your show, right? It's like 3 hours long, but the thing is, I mean, we do some longer shows as well, especially the live streams, because it's just a different format. But the thing is, they're like trailers, really. Yeah, so you get this idea that somebody watches that, and then they suddenly get inspired to go read something about their ancestry, or they go and click on a longer show like yours and want to hear a discussion. So it's a trailer to get them interested, to start searching, because that's when things become real. I can tell you something, but unless you look it up and you get intrigued and you get that passion to find it, it won't really connect. It won't be yours. Do you get what I mean? So it's about inspiring people to go on that journey, the journey that I went on and that you guys have probably gone on.
Yeah, I would 100% second that. I think each content creator kind of knows what he's doing with his content. I think that foundational element with something just that backs the underlying principles of our entire collective group, I guess you would say. It really kind of just leads people into interest about what you're talking about. What are the Kimbrian Wars? What is what did Tacitus say about our people? And they'll delve into this history and kind of learn more and more about ourselves. And that's something that I think I bring up ad nauseum, and most of the panel knows this already, but like just touching on actually who we are, delivering to people who maybe just had a brief interest or just a piqued interest about their past and their history, and getting them to see for themselves exactly what our people were like. It brings us together as a whole body. I think I think it's great. And then I think longer content has its place, but great.
Yeah, Mimir, I definitely see you as a powerful orator. I've already kind of said that, but I also think you could you could do the trailers or the introductions for video games or any of this kind of stuff, right? History Channel, Viking show, whatever it be, introduce the first episode. So you've definitely got this quality. Is that something that you work to develop, or do you practice, your videos dozens of times in your recordings, or how do you make that happen?
By accident, I think. I mean, my live streams, I cannot listen back to my live streams. I cannot really bear my voice. But I think that's a natural thing. But one of the things that I was worried about when we first did videos was, would I sound like an idiot? So it wasn't really, people tell me I mean, we obviously polish the voice up a little bit for the videos, but that's just to clean up the audio and because sometimes we'll put more echo on it. If you look at videos like oh God, my mind's gone. The Galgacus speech, right? We put a bit more echo on that because it's meant to be from the past, and we're trying to invoke this like echo through time aspect to it. So we will alter the voice a little bit for the video, but no, I didn't work on it. I mean, Riss is a real slave driver with audio and video. I will say that he has trained for it. He has trained in this area when he was younger. I have to give him top-notch recording, so it can mean repeating something over and over again till it sounds right.
I think that pursuit of quality definitely shows in the outcome. So I don't know what it is. You said you added echo. I think that I don't know. I don't know about the rest of the panel, but that's something that instantly hit home to me. I was like, this sounds like you're speaking in the halls of some,
Yeah.
some great hall, and you're orating a history or a narrative. I think that it definitely leads to the more powerful presentation.
Yeah, like I say, we add different effects for different videos to try and get over a different, I mean, like I say, Rhys is really really talented guy, and he knows what he's doing, and he would tweak with the most insane things that me and you would never even notice in a video or audio. But it's just the way he is. He's a perfectionist, and obviously, like you say, that shows in the videos, and that's all down to him. I mean, I mean, one of our videos recently, folk, the eternal one. I mean, that musically from Hallinder and visually, I say a few words at the front, and then we use that to create the visual and create the image, the music, and that just really showcased their talent. I thought that's one of my favorite videos, just because it's so beautiful to look at.
Do you think one of the strengths is you've mentioned two other guys' names? It's three of you working as a team to produce these, and do you feel like a big strength is the group chemistry that the three of you have?
Yeah, we're both although Rhys he wants perfect audio and things. He's so talented, but what we do is it's real simple. We don't overbear on each other. I write, narrate, I give it to Hallinder, he puts the music on it, and it goes to Rhys, and he puts the video on it, and that's it. We don't over critique each other. We will say if there's something a little bit different, but we're not like a team with a manager telling us how to do everything. We just let each other. We're all artistically natured, so we just let ourselves. So then you kind of get 3 layers to every video as well. I mean, the videos are the visuals. If you watch some of the visuals, Rhys often hides additions to the message I'm speaking about in the video. Quite often, actually, if you pay attention to the video, that is.
Yeah, sometimes I'll just be driving, so I'll put it on. And, but yeah, I would say the visuals definitely back what you're saying. I think they do a great job and kind of lining up what's being talked about with a powerful kind of visual message as well. So I've had firsthand observation of that on between just listening and also watching the video itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people prefer to just listen to them. I mean, I do the same. If I've got the time, I'll sit down. I used to find loads of inspirational videos on YouTube. I won't quite mention that. I don't know how far we go on this channel, but they're mostly gone now. You won't find any of them on YouTube anymore.
The historical videos, the old historical videos. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And that brings up the Simbri videos you did. The chat was mentioning that. My boy Napalm in the chat was mentioning that. Those videos were amazing. I remember watching those and being blown away by like kind of the new historical perspective and just how well it was produced in the audio and everything. So I really appreciated those. Those were awesome.
No, glad you did, Drenga. I mean, we haven't actually finished that series yet, believe it or not. There is one more video. We are planning to do more, but what we're going to do is, because we started at the very beginning as like a stopgap for other videos, it was like something we'd just throw in. But next time what we'll do is we'll produce them all at once and release them slowly, I think, because it just took a long time, and we need to manage our time a little bit better with that, because like I said, this isn't our main jobs. I mean, we don't make any money from Mimmir's Brunnr, and any money that comes in, it just goes back into Mimmir's Brunnr, either equipment or, like I say, we had to pay for our other channel, Mimmir's Council. For people that don't know, we have got another channel. Some of the music there we needed wasn't really, it wouldn't be very inspiring for Hallinder to write, because it's very monotone. It was just background, although he does do the loops in a lot of those videos. But we also paid like $200 just to get a music license. We buy imagery. And I tell you what, imagery for videos, like high quality, high definition art, pieces of art, to get the rights for those is very expensive.
Yeah, I've seen videos go for about $150 a second. So I know that's quite a production. Do you obviously know the subject matter in which you're talking about? Is it something you learned in school? Is this something that just you're interested in, and you just find the time to research and then make the video?
It's all. I mean, I didn't learn any of this in school. Like, I'm not educated, and I say this in front of my streams. I'm just a normal guy, like everyone in this room, and I've just got a passionate interest in it, and a natural, like I think many Europeans have, this natural inquiry that just makes us seek out and look and read and learn. I was fascinated by archaeology when I was younger. I was fascinated by our ancestors, I was fascinated by my past, but I never took it as a I was from a working class background. I left school before I'd got my qualifications and went straight into physical labor, so I wasn't considered. Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
I had a very similar for me as well, not classically educated. And I think actually classical education in the modern days, at least for the past 60 or more years, has been has been essentially just sort of Marxist
Semitic
brainwashing,
propaganda.
right? Exactly. It's like Judaic brainwashing and propaganda. And some of the smartest people that I know did not get into higher education and actually just had the drive and the personal ability to learn themselves, like, do deep research, do a lot of reading, and essentially teach themselves and become a lot more educated than somebody who has like a paper degree, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are some aspects of a classical education that are beneficial. Some skills that I wish I had for sure, but the baseline of learning is simply a desire. If you desire to know something, you'll get it. Yeah, I mean, I homeschool our children, right? And if they're not interested in something, it's like climbing a mountain. If they are interested, you barely have to do anything, right? And so if you've got the desire to learn about your ancestry or your past or whatever it is, you'll learn it. You'll do it.
Yeah, my mother said something similar to me when I was about 8 years old, and I said, like I want to, like, she introduced me to Celtic music. She introduced me to Celtic mythos and folklore and things like that. And it was like something I was really interested in. I was like, and one thing she's always said to me, which I think rings true for anyone trying to learn the topic, is willingness to know and a desire to learn are the true barriers to, what we have in schooling now. Basically, our education system just forces an education down your throat. There's no real backing. There's no willingness to know. It's just a desire to memorize text and regurgitate it later. And usually that text is quite detrimental, and it's not even like something that you would want your children to learn. So it's no wonder that a lot of us are turning to homeschooling, and just, if you're interested in something, learn it. And I find that much more of a free-flowing and a more of a freeing education than any other alternative.
My advice,
not to mention too, I was going to say is that some of the series that Mimir does, in my opinion, I was mentioning this to Grizzly the other night, is that they're a lot more relevant and a lot more easily digestible than a lot of the stuff you'd see on modern historical documentation channels and whatnot. Like what Dringer was mentioning earlier, the Kimberley series, that's actually one of my favorite series as well, is because a lot of this information you can't get on any of the kind of mainstream historical documentation channels. You have to like deep dive this stuff and to find this information. And I guess one of the questions I had too for Mimir is how would you think that we could kind of adapt that same mindset that you speak of in these videos to kind of the modern age?
Yeah, well, firstly, I'll just address what you said about the information in the videos and that. I mean, and that's the beauty, and one of the things that confuses me completely about modern movies, anything. Our history has, like, if I was to write a movie tomorrow, I would barely have to do anything. I could find 100 stories that are almost already written for me to make the most dramatic, the most heroic, and these are all historical events. So it's always shocked me that more people don't cover these stories, because they are, like I say, in of themselves already written for you. You don't have to do anything. I mean, except for you put the research in, but once you understand it, I mean, it's amazing. But transferring that mindset to now, that's the big question, isn't it? how do we transfer that mindset? Because I think it boils down to this very basic, right? If we go right down, this is something I've been meaning to do a video series on. It's kind of like natural law or natural order. And the very basic, one of those fundamentals of existence, right, of the natural order is the will to live. And I think, I mean, this has been said before by many people, you know, as we've got too comfortable, we've forgotten what it is to fight. But I mentioned this, I think, on a stream a bit ago, but I'll say it again because it's important. But when you go into your garden or a field, every single square inch, right, of ground is a battlefield. There's plants battling, there's microbes battling, there's animals. So when you look at a wood, it's a billion battles. I mean, literally a billion battles when you go down to the microscopic level. It might look peaceful and tranquil, but there is literally war. Yeah, everything is fighting for its bit of light, its bit of food, its bit of ground, and that's something that in the modern world we forgot. Yeah, and this is why we see this. This is what is going on now. People are giving away what has been hard fought for in the past by our ancestors.
I'd say in the modern world, this is it's the people not have only forgotten, but they're scared by these notions. And one of the things that we go into a lot of like the 19th century philosophy stuff with will to power and similar topics. And I think one of the key things is understanding that life is perpetual conflict. And quite a lot of philosophies and religions try to sort of suppress this and pitch you after worldly rewards where you're going to have some paradise that's absolutely free of conflicts. But we want to take our people in the other direction where they embrace life and they embrace conflict and they sort of internalize this idea of eternal warfare that this is what it is to live.
Right, and it's based on survival. It's based on the natural order. It's based on nature, and these are the things that people understood fundamentally, even down to their very, native spirituality. It is a struggle. It's not just forgotten about. Our history has not just been forgotten about. It has been thoroughly suppressed to a degree that suppressed and subverted and changed to a degree that you now have Europeans advocating for their own erasure. Like it's been that bad. No other living organism has that. That's not natural. That's not a natural state of man to want his own destruction, his own people's destruction, his history's destruction. This is obviously a created concept. This is something that has been pushed and pushed and pushed to the point where we don't even know who we are anymore. And that's I think the power of these videos really shows, and something that we work for in Tholian Transmissions as well, is we want to show people again who they are. And it's fundamental. Mm-hmm. It's when they have that concept, when they have that much power behind them, it emboldens them, it strengthens them, it reinvigorates their elan vital or their bio entity, their biospirit, whatever you want to call it, and it really drives them upwards. That's the main thing. Everything that I see right now in the West is just driving our people down and down and down. And videos like that, Consequence of Cowardice, some of our previous videos on master and slave morality, and some other topics that we've discussed, we're trying to drive them up. And I think that's one of the key ways to go about it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, there was a reason we had a heroic culture in the North, because, as you said, that life is an eternal struggle, and it will not end with me. It doesn't matter how. The purpose of my existence now is to put my children in the strongest position that I can. But that does not mean that they will be spared. I mean, we cover this in some of our videos. Adorn your name. We mentioned this. No matter how powerful the lion, right? His cubs have still got to fight for. They don't get a free meal. Yeah, they have to, and that's the nature. It's not going to be spared on anybody. And rather than hide away from that or pretend it doesn't exist, it is better to embrace heroism, embrace it, because what is that? There's that famous quote, about it is best to teach our children of heroes because there's a lot of bad people in this world, essentially. And I forgot the quote, I've just butchered it, but and that's the point. It's not about trying to go to war with everybody or trying to fight. Obviously, your aim is to create safety, but safety is an illusion that is only maintained. You can only maintain any amount of safety through the threat of violence, through the ability to deliver that violence if needed. But you don't want to deliver that violence. No one wants to really go to war and give their life, but you need to be able to do that. The Tacitus, you were talking about Tacitus earlier, he mentions in Germania, the most noble of the Germans, the Chalky, who says they don't start any wars, but they finish them. Yeah. They consider themselves the most noble Germans because they will not attack and plunder other nations. But what they will do is if you attack them, they will come down on you like fire. Yeah. And they will destroy you. And that is kind of, I was writing an article about that a bit ago and didn't finish it. But that attitude really inspired me. I remember the first time I read that felt like I wanted to be. It was a noble position. I'm not going to attack anybody, but if they come for me, I'm going to make sure I win, and they do not, and that's it. It's over. And I think things like that, these aspiring to great things like great philosophies like that are good, and a way we can do it without being, an over-aggressive idiot either, if you get what I'm saying. Because some people see conflict as just, you just want to fight all the time, but it's just a reality that we have to exist in.
Yeah, and I thought that was one of the most appealing and very one of the best things I saw in that video recently was that you focused on just understanding that life is a challenge and it is a constant attempt to overcome, and the best way to handle that is to not to back down or to actually confront it and accept it. And by doing so, that brings meaning to life. It brings a sense of content and very fulfilling.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree there, Alex.
Yeah, and then the whole concept of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to kind of touch on what we were discussing earlier for Mimir, why is it you think that so many of our own kin, white Europeans, are kind of so easily led astray and so easily manipulated into hating themselves these days? What would you classify that mindset as?
Well, this is a big topic, but it can be kind of reduced quite easily. We are a beautiful people, and I'm not afraid to say that, and I won't ever not say that. I believe that we're the greatest people on earth, and I believe that anybody or any race or any ethnicity that doesn't believe that they are the greatest people on earth is doing themselves a disfavor. That's how you become great, in the belief in who you are. But to go back, we are the most altruistic. Now, altruism is generally given a bad rap, but I always defend altruism because applied right, it is the reason for every hero, right? It is the reason for all of those heroic stories and mythology. It's the reason, it's what we aspire to, the ultimate sacrifice. I cover this a bit in a warrior ethos. So if we look at our society, and our women are the most caring, the most loving, they bring up the most nurturing. And what we've done is, or what has been done against us, in my opinion, is that they've turned our strength upon us. So our altruism now is wasted by they get our young brave men with heroic ideals join the military, and they get sent to go and fight wars for somebody else, destroying nations that they should never be in. And then we end up getting flooded with the immigrants that then are most loving and nurturing. But women, they get taught from a very young age, both the men and the women, that this is how you serve your people and this is how you serve your nation. So then the women are more likely or more keen to want to nurture and look after these people that have lived in hard times. But it's not that these things are a problem. It is that they have been misaligned and deliberately misaligned to bring about our own destruction, because nobody can defeat us. I don't believe that any race or nation or ethnicity could destroy us except ourselves. And that's what's happening. They've turned us on ourselves. They've turned our greatest strengths as forces to destroy us. Right.
And just touching on the feminine part of our society, I agree with you 100% in that we are the most nurturing, and I think our women are the most single most capable of nurturing and bringing our children up the right way. I think that is by design why we've succeeded in what we've done throughout history. And I think, just as you said, these foreign forces have told them, if you have a white child, you're killing the planet. If you have a European baby, this is like the utmost of horrors turned to the planet. So this natural drive that our women have has been subverted and used on every single other third world country and people. And that's what you see with liberal women. They are incredibly caring, but they're caring about the outgrip. They're caring about people that seek us harm, seek our destruction. And that's what they're taught to do.
Yeah, and something I avoid, and you'll notice I avoid this, is blaming my people for anything. Even those that are rallying against us, right? There's a reason for that, because they've been brainwashed by a system that has been out to get them since they were young. I'm 40 years old now, and when I went to school, this brainwashing was going on. Okay, it was full speed then, and now it's even faster. Yeah. So our people are being brainwashed. I want to release them from that brainwash, and I'm done with blaming white people for our situation. You know what I mean? I'm done with that. We are being attacked, and we've been aggressively targeted. And through our empathy, through a beautiful natural behavior, we welcome people in, both at high levels and low levels, and we've treated them as equals. And they have not done the same for us. They have tried to subvert us and attack us. Now it's time. We've learnt our lesson, right? It's come to fruition now. And we need to start waking our people up. We need to start telling them, you know what, you were tricked, you were conned, your good nature. And that's the actual art of the con, right? What they do is they get you to, once you accept the con, any criticism of the con, so when you point out that it's wrong, they take personally. And this trick of the con, it's really important to understand, because it's a psychological instance how it works. But so when you go, hey man, you've been tricked, these immigrants are actually, they're not what the media is presenting. They're actually, in many cases, violent criminals, etc. They go, they don't deny it because what you're telling them is not true, even if you produce all the statistics. They're denying it because they see it as an attack on them. Yeah, because you're saying to them, you're a gullible idiot. So when we approach these people, we have to be very aware of the con, and we have to try and get under that. To show them, hey man, you were tricked. Now listen, I was tricked too, yeah, and so is everybody else. It's been very clever, but they've tricked you, and we need to approach them like that rather than calling them names or anything, because all they do then is they dig their heels in, yeah, and we get into this problem where what we end up doing is in a battle ethnically, racially with ourselves, and that's the last thing we want to do, because we will destroy each other, and we have the power to do it. And we're the only people that do.
That actually reminds me of something that you'd mentioned in your last stream. You said something along the lines of, the world doesn't care if you're ready or not. The world moves at its own pace. So how would you say that would be able to kind of help other white Europeans kind of come to this realization? How do you think that we can kind of collectively galvanize our biospirit for the kind of coming darkness that's approaching us as a people?
Well, as bad and as dark as it is, right, it's definitely making more people start to think along our lines. So we've got to try and use that to show them the reality, because it's so in your face at the moment. It's actually an advantageous to us. But yeah, the world does not stop. It doesn't care if you're ready. But at the moment, I don't think we're ready. So we've got to try and galvanize our people, like you say. But how do we do that exactly? I mean, I wish I had the perfect answer for that, because I'd be making videos about it tomorrow and trying to get them everywhere, right? I think just trying to remind ourselves of who we are, remind ourselves that we're beautiful. And another thing we should remind our people is, and this is why I refrain from name calling and refrain from blaming them, is I love them. Yeah, I really care about them, because and it's not just because I'm altruistic. It's because that's how people survive. My tribe, the future of my people is the future of my children. It doesn't matter if they're lefties, liberals, whatever. Their fate is my children's fate, because while we've been lied to in the West that no one cares about race and we're all equal and all this kind of nonsense, nobody else believes that. Nobody else. So when they get power, they won't look at them and say, you're a liberal. They're going to look at everybody and say, you're white. And they're all going to get the same. Yeah. So my love for our people is just as much selfish as it is altruistic. It's about we as a collective, we will exist or we won't. There'll be no individual. We won't exist as a few people spread out. At that point, we've got no chance, right? No one's going to care. Nature doesn't care that, there's only 2 of those plants left. That, something to come over and just chew them up. It doesn't matter. Yeah. There's no.
That's actually a
roboting out a little bit for me.
Yeah, that's actually a powerful
Go
perspective that you have on that, because it seems like most people, even within our circles, kind of look at it more of an in-group thing of like, we have our own little in-group and it's kind of us versus the world. And I mean, they're not entirely wrong in that sense, but I don't think I've ever heard it explained that way in the sense of we kind of collectively share this fate, whether it be, white liberals or conservatives or whatever label you want to throw in there. We as a race share the same fate at the end of the day.
Yeah, because that's the natural order of things. And like I say, nobody else believes what our children are being taught in school, that we're all the same and everyone's going to love each other. We're seeing that now, right? We're seeing that right now in our own nations, where these people that are going, hey, man, I don't see race. Yeah, I don't see anything. They're going, you're more racist than the guy, than the open racist.
Yeah, colorblindness is now, the ultimate racism.
That's more racist. So as they concede, then what are they saying? They want us on our knees and they want us before them. And what will happen then? Look at South Africa. There'll be they don't care. I've seen in South Africa stories and in America where some liberal has dedicated their lives to helping a black community or somewhere in South Africa or in America. And then you'll see a news story how they were mugged, robbed and killed. Yeah. Because when they said, hey, man, I've always been helping you, they didn't give a crap. They saw a white person and the media's told them white people are privileged and white people are to blame. And all their problems are to blame because of that white people, and that's a white person. Yeah, that's how it's going to be. And this is the message we've got to get to these guys, because before they end up finding out in a very terrible way the reality of that.
Yeah, even in South Africa, they still have affirmative action, and they right, and they don't, and they still. You're right. I mean, political correctness is not going to save us.
No,
as many people might think, or even vaguely.
I mean, active preservation for our people, our history, or for anybody, active preservation for every aspect of their society, every bit of their history, every struggle they had, all their heroes. Is a natural occurrence. It is completely and wholly natural. That is biological determinism for one's folk, one's entity, and it's only Europeans that are taught that we're quote unquote not allowed to do that. And who, when given this and that's one thing I just wanted to bring up real quick from Will's question, how do we maybe overcome some of this? Is just show people our history, just show them that whatever they're seeing right now, whatever they're being told or taught in schools, whatever their hatred for their brothers and sisters of European descent, I mean, it can be completely dissolved with just showing how much we have been the most loving race on this planet. Mm-hmm. I believe that, not just for ourselves, but for nature itself, for the animals that exist within our lands. I mean, with Europeans gone, we wouldn't have a world. I truly believe that. That's how much I know. That's how much I know that we love. I think it's one of the most important things one can do is learn about their past.
And it's really simple, right? You want to prove that we want to go. Look at every look at the groups that are protesting whaling. Right, look at the ethnic makeup of the groups on those boats. Look at the groups protesting animal cruelty. Look at the ethnic makeup of everyone, worldwide groups. Look at any group that is trying to protect nature. Look at any group that is pleading for sanity. Look at any group that is pleading for the well-being of anybody, and you will find that it is mostly made up by European people, because we are the most caring. And that's it. That's proven by that. They say it's because of privilege and we can do that. Well, it doesn't matter if it is because of privilege, because it still stands true, right? And we built a society where we could give our time to other things that we cared about. Now,
and then imagining that topic, Mimir, and then bowing. Imagine knowing everything that we know. I mean, this panel and our listeners and the people that pursue and know about our past. I mean, just imagine any of those people bowing. It's impossible. We would never. So that by itself is a firm counterpoint to what's happening. Just know who we are and know that we are literally the most loving and kind people on this planet, until obviously we are under attack.
Well, yeah, like I said, the most noble of the Germans, according to Tacitus, were very peaceful till you poked them enough, and then they wiped you out. So that could be a lesson there, right?
It was definitely the Rudyard Kipling poem comes to mind. That and just the stories of our heroes. I mean, it's nature repeats itself. Nature is the only constant, and the natural course will be something that a lot of our enemies don't want to see, I would say.
The will to live, like I say, it's one of the most. It's a fundamental, and if we lose it, we will disappear. You know, it won't. Nature doesn't hang around for anybody. It doesn't. It doesn't care. You know, nature. Carry on. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Just real quick before I forgot, it was in my notes. I just wanted to touch on it while we're on this topic. In your video, Consequence of Cowardice, you talked about what occurred with our people who fled from battle.
Yes.
What their women did. Can you just go into that just a little bit and give maybe a contemporary example to that, if you can?
Oof, a contemporary example. Well, I'll probably bring it forward a little bit from the Kimberley, because that comes from the Kimberley. That's what the Romans said, that when the men run away from battle, that they were speared essentially by their loved ones, because cowardice, and that's the point. That's what I'm trying to do with Consequence of Cowardice. But women, as we talked earlier, are the most caring and nurturing on the planet. But another thing they are is our fire. I mean, I'm actually working on a piece at the moment where I talk about the boar, because the boar is a really amazing symbol. And it's a real great connector, actually, of the hero and the feminine and their interrelationship. But just to explain, the boar, like, it's sent down sometimes by Artemis with the Caledonian boar, sends it down because King Oeneus forgets to mention her name, right? He forgets to pay respects to the mighty huntress. So Artemis sends down the boar. So our women are furious, and the Vartes and things like that, the Volvers, the words come from the same as Woden, fury, possession, inspired fury, etc. And our women are an inspirational force to the Germanic and the Northern European man, the Celtic and the Germanic man, because they were fiery. They were. So an example from the borderlands of Scotland, they were cattle rustlers, really. Going back to the early Middle Ages, around the Middle Ages. And like there's a tradition there that when they'd run out of food or they didn't have much food in the cupboard, that the woman would serve him a stirrup. Yeah, get on your horse, get out. Yeah, the man didn't question that. The man got on his horse because in Anglo-Saxon England. Women were buried with the keys to the house. Women were the queen of the house, and the man was the king of everything outside. Yeah. So the man had to preserve the house, but in the house, the woman was queen, the power, the force. She had the authority within those walls, and that was symbolized by Anglo-Saxon women being buried with keys. So the nature of our women being a driving force, when our women, just like our men, when we're aligned with nature, rather than fighting against each other, we work in unison. To that fire, that anger against the men should be used to drive us to protect and expand and make our lives better, to provide for our children.
I mean, can you imagine the power of that love to of their own children to I mean, to basically take their own life, as opposed to being subject to the whims and the fancies of whatever enemy beset them in those battles. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean that's talking about the end when they killed the stop the slavery. That was because they refused to be slaves, and that was the reason I wrote Consequence of Cowardice. That was a deep Consequence of Cowardice came out of a deep philosophical, a moral not a moral dilemma, but a dilemma that when I first read that, it shocked me to the core. Right, I was like, what's going on here? And if you want a modern example of that, there was one in at the war in Germany in World War II. Many Germans took the same approach as the Cimbri at the end of the war.
And you could say there's a lot of historians during that era that definitely read Tacitus and definitely had that German idealism at the forefront.
Yes.
Also, to kind of touch on what Mimir just mentioned about the Germans at the end of the Second World War, I recall them saying something along the lines of, for every one German killed, 10 Russians or communists were killed during the battles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a World War II military historian, but I know they put up a big fight. And if it wasn't for, I mean, I know the Battle of Berlin was a particularly bloody battle. And I believe
it took them a long
even
time to get up there.
I believe even the Russian general that was trying to take Berlin said that if it wasn't for American bombs, they would not have been able to take the city.
Yeah, it took them a long time to progress all the way up to the city. It was a very bloody battle.
And
Yeah.
again, that was based on the love of their people. Obviously, at this point, we all know what's at stake, and the Germans knew what was at stake. And in fact, a lot of people are coming to understand what was at stake because they're seeing it now. It's it's amazing that we've come kind of full circle in the last few decades and facing the same thing all over again.
I've got a good question that I'd like to throw to Mimir. So a couple times throughout this conversation, you've kind of touched on how leftists, liberals, SJWs, whatever, whites, whatever you want to call them, how they really that they're really tapping into their internal morality, right? That they're acting in these ways that are completely congruent with white nature. It's all just being misdirected. So I think that's spot on. And what you see from these people is that they really absolutely 100% believe that they have the moral high ground in every single conflict that they engage in. They have a spiritual level of certainty about them when they're doing these things like creating food drives for the homeless, or you can think of the Swedes, those famous scenes of the Swedish women welcoming the refugees coming on the trains.
Yes.
They have absolute moral certainty in their action, and that's part of what sort of empowers them. And then when they look at the right wing, they look down at them as their moral inferiors because they believe that they're engaging in sort of this selective, tribalistic, self-interested. They believe that the right wing is just in it for themselves and money and this and that. So they really do kind of embrace this sort of, I guess, universalism or altruism that they've tapped into, and trying to combat them from a tribalistic point of view doesn't seem to work on them. They seem to be somewhat impervious to it. So what would be your strategy for trying to win these people over?
Well, like I mentioned in Consequence of Cowardice, love. We have to show them that we love them, but you undermine, and the best way to defeat an army isn't beat it on the battlefield. It's to undermine its very reason, like you said, that moral impetus. A white man with a moral. But when white Europeans believe they are in the right, they are a force to be reckoned with, and we're seeing that from our perspective because we're seeing it used against us, right? And on our side, we're still ashamed. And I'll tell you, I can prove this right now. How many people believe what we believe but won't say it to anybody around them? How many believe people?
I think the majority.
Yeah, how many people think it's okay to be white but are too scared to mention that? We're too scared to be proud of who we are, so we look like the criminal. Yeah. When they shine a light on us, they're all there, all righteous. Yeah, standing there welcoming the refugees and doing everything, feeling that they're morally superior. And then they shine a light at us and everybody scatters. They'll speak up on Twitter anonymously, but when they get a light shined on them and they're told to stand by what they believe, they scatter, they make excuses. So we look like we're ashamed. Well, if you act ashamed, people are going to think that you're hiding something, that you've got something to be ashamed of. And I think that's one of the best ways we combat it. We say, hey, man, we love our people, and everything we do is out of love. Yeah, and everything we do is out of care for our country and our children's futures. And we're not backing down from that, and we're not ashamed of that. So when we're dealing with these people, we have to show that we have to give the same moral appear like we're at least... and somebody in there is saying, dox yourself and take power. And this is, again, dox myself, right? Now, I'm not telling... Everybody's got a different reason to not give out their real name, yeah? Or do this. I don't. I give them mine. It's there. I've doxed myself, right? Now, but at the same point, when does concern, personal concern, equal cowardice? Where's the threshold? And it's going to be different for everybody. But it is a very important point that if we're ashamed of our opinions too much, we look like we should. If you're acting ashamed, people are going to see it as that, and then we lose that moral impetus.
And just to back you on that, Mimir, I mean, can you imagine the opinion of yourself and how cowardice you must feel, and how ashamed you must feel that you can't simply profess the love of your own history and your people?
Exactly.
Openly? I mean, where are we at that we can't do that? And where are we going to be that we still can't do that in 10 years?
Now, I'm not giving advice, like Spike's saying there in the chat, to tell anybody to stop. So I don't care what they do. Yeah. But I'm not ashamed of what I believe. And I have, and yes, we're persecuted distance. Do you think it's going to get any better, Spike? Do you think if we hide in the shadows, anonymously posting, do you think it's going to get better? Do you think in 10 years' time, it's going to be a better situation? What it's going to mean is in 10 years' time, you won't even be able to do it anonymously. In 20 years' time, even having the thought of it or saying it or whispering it in your house will get you a van turn up at your front door and you're dragged away. It's not going to get any better, Spike. It's not going to get any better. It's all it's going to do is go worse and worse. And you want to accelerate a collapse. So you believe that the infrastructure, right, I'm just going to speak to this. You believe that the infrastructure set up now, all these cameras, all these rules, all this the militarization of the police, yeah, everything that's going on right now, they're just going to give that up. And they're doing all this. They're bringing all these people just to completely collapse the society and then hand it to to a tribal situation, which is exactly what you want. And they would have no power. There is going to be no major collapse. If you think that, then what you're saying is that everything that's happening right now is happening by some chance of chaotic. It's just chaos happening. And there's nobody really directing it. Because if they were directing it, why would they direct it to a position where they lose their strength? I think it's will for ignorance there, to be honest. We have to see that our governments are acting against us. And they're doing it for a reason, not to destroy everything that they've built. I mean, that just seems silly to me. It seems, if I was to believe that, then there is nobody in control. We're not being persecuted. It's just absolute madness. There's chaos in the world and nobody's doing anything.
Yeah,
it's a cause of a system collapsing. It's not a system collapsing. It's been deliberately manipulated. Sorry, man. It's just, this is the kind of stuff we get. We get these ideas that they think...
Yeah, I would say. I mean, whatever your personal belief is the best way forward. I think fundamentally what Mimir has been saying is quite accurate. If you as a majority of our people is being just inundated with you're bad, your son should die, your daughter should die, you should be slaves to whatever class rules over you, and there's nobody saying that you. I mean, we actually care. We actually give a shit. Here is your history. This is all bullshit. Everything that you're seeing is designed to make you feel that way, and this is the truth, do you think that would not be beneficial? This is a rhetorical
Well,
question.
I
It
would
doesn't
say
deserve an answer.
not only that is that people have to realize if you don't look at these things and realize what it is we're actually fighting for, then you're kind of going to lose that inspiration to fight in the first place. You have to have something that's worth fighting for, and that's what a lot of these historical concepts and kind of getting back to know our own people and stuff kind of stems from. And to touch on something you guys were discussing earlier is about having the moral high ground. I mean, this is what a lot of military historians said, that the Viet Cong won the war because they had the moral high ground against far superior military of the U.S. Military powers. They had that moral high ground within their own people and their country.
And like it, I mean, this is an uncomfortable fact, but we are a global minority. We are a global minority
Yes.
under something that could be defined in the UN, which I've looked up in depth as the definition of genocide. And it's not that they're just willfully killing us left and right. It's the displacement of our people, the destruction of our heritage and our history, which is all defined perfectly under the UN, actually.
Right. And I mean, if it was articulated correctly, I mean, we do have the moral high ground. I mean, they're advocating for destroying a particular people, a unique people. We have a rich history that goes back, thousands of millennia. I mean, just so long. And like they're advocating to completely destroy that. I mean, diversity is anti-diversity. And I mean, if we had people in prominent positions, like I guess that's the most frustrating thing, is that we don't have like, well-known politicians, here in America, for example, are, and the conservatives are very reluctant or cowardice in speaking up and saying something that can be understood as, as being as fighting back and essentially putting forth some type of counter message that can resonate with their constituency. And I think that's one of the most frustrating parts in our current situation, is because there really is not anyone who is in that position, who is well known, who's willing to take that step.
Yeah, and I would say, Spike, I noticed you. I am your senpai. Not to meme too hard, but to not hate that which threatens what you love is no love at all, and love has to be discriminatory. If you have nobody benefiting, or no one acknowledging, or no one advocating for your survival other than your lone wolfism, your anarchy is not going to do shit. And it's not victimhood; it's love. You could. I've never been a victim. I've never said that. Oh, I'm pushed down by society. No,
I think
I know how powerful we are.
Spike's taking a bit of it, but okay, anarchy. I'll teach you about anarchy. There's always been anarchy, You'll see an anarchist to post something like, I shouldn't need a permit to get married. I shouldn't need a permit for this. I shouldn't need a permit for that. Well, the only people who don't need permits, those that rule. They don't give a fuck because they live in anarchy. They have told you that they have created a system and you live under it. No king ever needed a permit. Kings lived in anarchy, and their anarchy was that king over there could come over, kill them, and take what they have. The fact that you think you have to wait for anarchy shows that you are a pawn, that you live under a system and you're waiting to take somebody else's lead. Anarchy is a constant of nature. Yeah. And what men do is they create a boundary where they can bring up their family within that anarchy, where they bring order. I mean, this is the whole concept behind the Thor's hammer. This is why it's a gable on the judge's table and goes down, right? It's man's order among the anarchy.
And it's what had the Icelandic people survive for so long with their heritage and traditions. And this is something to think about. Like, we are in a great fall. If you understand the cyclic nature, that's the seasonal nature of civilization. If you understand we're in a great fall. I'm acting as a little squirrel, getting ready for something big. None of our people are quite ready yet. Anarchy would just basically wipe off. I don't want to get into it too much, but start making preparations. If you have family, make preparations for your family's survival. This is what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll jump in, and I guess I could say I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here from kind of the American standpoint of I'm not sure if you've been familiar with kind of the chaos and the stuff that's been happening in the States, but I mean, you have people who are kind of like normie tier conservatives who are definitely not pro-white in any sense, and they're getting attacked by a lot of these anarchists and communists, and the cops just end up throwing them in jail anyways without them even advocating for their own people. And it's kind of interesting just to kind of watch that happening. But yeah, to kind of lend to the point of the state is entirely against whites, even whites who are not even self-conscious, and that can be a lot of. Oh, go ahead.
No, carry on. Sorry, finish your point. I jumped in there.
Oh, I was just going to say that can kind of be demoralizing to a lot of people. That was all I was going to say.
Yeah, and that's the reason people, and like I say, it's not, and I wasn't trying to say dox yourself. That's the words of people. What I'm saying is, this is why I understand why people are scared to stand up against this, because the system is against us, right? But trying to hide from the system. This is what I was trying to say in my relation. Trying to hide from a system that's coming after you, regardless, right? It's coming after you. Yeah. We need to show that we're proud. Is what I'm saying. We need to show that if we act like what we do is shameful, it's how they will perceive it. And another thing is just back to Daggers's point earlier, which started the original question. Right wing. I'm not right wing. Why am I right wing? Why am I left wing? I don't want. The thing is, when we use these terms that have been used for years in this climate, right wing is more state power. I do not want the state to have any more power at the moment, because anytime they get more power, what are they doing to me with it? They're using it against me. I do not want more state power at the moment. Am I socialist? Yeah, I'm a tribal. So I'm tribalist. So I'm socialist. I believe that our people should go together. Early socialism was not invite the immigrants. Early socialism keep the immigrants out and keep our job wages high.
Absolutely.
We've got all these confused terms at the moment that are making it all kind of crazy, right? So, and this is something I brought up briefly with the idea of the word racist, even on the last, right? It's we don't understand each other's terms. Right? Nobody knows what right wing means. Does it mean you're a capitalist? Does it mean you just want more power? All these terms have almost become, they've all got their own meanings to each group. Yeah. So when somebody in Antifa says right wing, what do they mean? Yeah, they don't mean the same as when a conservative says right wing, or we say right wing, or they say. So I think all these terms are helping to confuse the battlefield. So we don't know who's our ally and who's our not. And that's how it's coming out with this conservative stuff, right? They're being lumped in. Yeah, they're being lumped in with everybody else, even though they're like trying to go, hey, man, I was marching with you. I'm all for it, but we can't. They try to make these excuses for why they're doing it and trying to be reasonable. But reasonable doesn't matter because they've been moved against them, and they're just seen, as I said earlier, as white people.
I mean, yeah, I've talked to complete normies. By the way, I know some of you don't talk to normies, just regular old Joes that walk in the street. I'm not talking about the panel, by the way. Just talking to anybody who listens to the show. If you just bring up the fact that you want a furtherance of your own people, your own heritage, you're proud of it, you love it, you absolutely admire it, they're like, oh, that's really cool. Like, it's only the rabid enemies of our people that are like, oh, that's the literal worst thing you can absolutely do. The whole left-right paradigm is built around this idea that you can't have anything else. This exists.
Yeah, most of us are third. Yeah, to kind of get back to what Mimir was saying about tribalism and the old school socialism, I would say most of us here definitely don't consider ourselves right wing in any sense of that word or term, but rather kind of that third positionist ideology that a lot of
as Big Cat Kayla said in the chat, Hoppian, authoritarian, libertarian, racial tribalist. I would say I'm definitely tribalist towards my people.
Into that umbrella.
I'd say I'm severely tribalistic for my own people.
I wanted to address Spike what he said earlier. I don't think that Mimir ever said to dox yourself once during the stream or to collectivize. So yeah, we kind of have to be fair there and not, put words or things into his mouth that he didn't say. So
I think though that we have a little bit of an impasse here in regards to this stuff. So I think we should just go at it like head on. I think what Mimir, you were kind of getting at was it's more about attitude, right? It's more like, it's like if you do get like, okay, yeah, we have to kind of keep our cloaks up. We can't just operate completely in the open because the state power will crush us. But when we do get found out, when we do get confronted, when somebody does find us, we shouldn't run or bow or accept the shame that they're trying to put on us. So I'm taking what you're meaning to be more of an internalized spiritual, emotional attitude sort of thing.
Yeah, well, what I was trying to say, but I mean, obviously they were trying to say with being dogs, but I was trying to say, when we act as if we're shamed, okay, if I walk into a room and my children are playing and there's a big mess over there and I say, hey man, what's done this? And they all look down. What's my initial reaction there? I like, no, we can see this with dogs, right? You come into your house, what does a dog do if it's done a dump in the kitchen, right? Looks down, starts to cower. Yeah. And I know you're guilty. I know the dog's guilty, or I know my child's guilty of whatever. Yeah. So when they shine a light and say, hey man, you won't even say, and we're too afraid to speak. And when it's mentioned, we don't want to give our opinion and we look down at the floor, right? We just look away because we don't want to get involved, because we don't want to expose ourselves or whatever. What do we look like? We look like we're guilty of something. So when they accuse us of being haters and all of this, and we look away, we essentially say we are. And I believe that when we do things like that, yeah, but it does come down to a personal understanding, an internalization of the situation. When does my self-concern become cowardice? Yeah, and it's going to be a different line for everybody, and this is what I was going to get at. Like, I can see why for me, the line's over here, I'm past it. But for somebody else, they might not be at that level yet because of their position. Yeah. So I'm not saying everybody just go out and dox yourself. What I'm saying is there's going to become a point, though, when that line is going to keep going further till everybody will become a coward because we would have lost. Yeah. And every individual has got to look at it for themselves and look at where it's going and decide what they've got to gain and what they've got to lose. And when it goes past that threshold, you got to fight, because so I'm saying it's a scale, right? When does my individual safety become compromised by the majority safety? When does my position become that even if I'm silent, I'm still getting it? Even if I hide, it's still coming after me.
Yeah, I would say there's a hypothetical that I'll just throw out there. If I don't know, let's just throw a number out there. If 100 million Europeans across the West and the diaspora all of a sudden said, I'm actually really super proud, and they were open about it, do you think that would have a global effect? Do you think it wouldn't? In my opinion, it would. People are going to see these, the consequence of cowardice is our utter failure. It is our demise. That is what happens when you don't do anything.
Yeah, if we could get, even in the UK, it's about 60, it's nearly 70 million people, right? If 10 million white people stood out and said, I don't give a shit about anything you've got to say, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm going to stand by it, the system stops, the attacks against us stop. We still have the power. We're not using that power.
And even if it doesn't stop, Mimir, even if it continues, it's just going to show people. If your message is, I love our people, I love, if your message is your message or my message that I usually go after, and then they see that, they're like, look how full of hate these people are. They don't have a narrative anymore with that amount of people. Let's just, and again, this is hypothetical, but if a huge group of our people did that, the narrative would fall apart rather rapidly to most people of our tribe, let's just say, of our nations.
Well, this kind of goes into another thing I was going to say too, is that the whole collective unconscious thing of if you believe in that or not. I would gather that most of us here do believe in that concept, and I do think that that's kind of lent into a lot of whites collectively waking up. I mean, even people within our circles are starting to see people like average normie whites waking up to a lot of the stuff that's happening. So I, for one, do believe in the whole collective unconscious concept, the whole biospirit concept. Mimir, what'd your take be on that? Do you kind of see that happening right now, or?
Well, first, I'll say about the collective unconscious. yeah, I believe there's a folkish soul. If I was going to more spiritual terms, I'd say that's what we go into and come out of, essentially. But is it engaging right now? I mean, that I think it is on a certain level, and I think this will galvanize that. But like I say, I think we're in a very tough position at the moment, and so many people are, like I say, and it's not even like just to go back to the point before. It's like if some people will not even speak about this with anybody. Like Grizzly said, some people don't speak to normies, whatever. And we're isolating ourselves. Well, if you're isolating yourself and you're not speaking to anybody, and even if you do meet them, you don't want to get involved in those conversations, then how connected is that folk soul? Yeah, if you're not connected, I mean, there's a tendency with our opinions, and even in certain heathen groups, that that we're disconnected. As you said before, I believe, Will, about like us against the world. Yeah, there's this small group of us, and we're against the world. And we're always going to be under attack. Well, when we talk about things like the folk soul, that really starts to contrast there, doesn't it? It's like, well, we believe in a folk soul, but we're saying, I'm not. But those ones are not good enough for it. Well, you don't get to choose, do you? If it's a folk soul, it's your folk. It's a race, and we believe in race and ethnicity. So we can't decide that suddenly they can't get into that. They don't have access to that folk soul. But I mean, does their opinion change that folk soul? I mean, can it be changed irreparably? I mean, we could go into lots of more esoteric discussions with that for sure.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that concept. Like I said, I haven't completely lost faith in the whole collective unconscious concept. And a lot of people in our circles who are not pagan really, or don't really kind of understand that concept in and of itself. So, but I actually had another question for you. It might be a little contentious for some people in the chat who may not be pagan like ourselves, but my question was, what kind of role do you see Christianity and Abrahamism as a whole kind of playing in the decline of the West at the moment, and kind of this erasure of ethnic European traditions and culture?
Well, that's. I mean, I'm no great fan of Christianity. I'll put it out there straight away. Okay, I believe it is a tool for our destruction. You're in good company. I believe it's a tool for our destruction. Ultimately, they took like archetypes like Woden and turned them into Jesus. I mean, and this is clear from the conversion, how they try to narrate Jesus at the beginning. And at the time, as we always do, we ignored certain aspects of Christianity, and we paganized it. The Europeans did. I mean, most of the celebrations are pagan and heathen. It's very heathen. The New Testament is even in its construction. It's just got a twist where we say, vengeance, like Woden, to seek vengeance. They say to forgive, and that's one of the crucial differences. And also, it's non-racial. So, if you can pin a Christian down if you really want, like, what's more important? That person's a Christian or that they're a white atheist, and they will always say that the Christian's more important, or they should at least. Yeah, because
I mean,
they're the ones.
Anecdotally, just to back you up, I've talked to Christians in the past, and I'm also not a fan, but just to solidify that point, I've asked the direct question: if Britain right now, or America right now, became 99% non-native or non-European, let's just say. But they were Christian. Would you be in favor of that? And it was a universal yes. Yes,
because it's above. There's a real simple way to understand two different religions. Is actually Christianity says that their God created everything, therefore everything is subject to it. Right? It's an overarching. Nature is just abiding God's law. Whereas for me as a heathen, my gods are within nature. They're part of it. So they're not looking down on it; they're part of it, and they end up wrapped and embroiled in the same things that I do, because they're caught still. There are forces that are working, that they're not in control of. Yeah, because we have certain forces that are that Sunna. Yeah, in Anglo-Saxon that's the sun, but Sunna does her own thing. and she abides. Do you get what I'm trying to say? My gods are within nature, whereas the Christian God sees itself as a dictator over nature. So race doesn't matter because their God's above nature. Yeah. So do you get what I mean? Race doesn't matter because the God did it and God can undo it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've always made the point that in Native European spirituality, you see yourself, your family, your kin, your traditions, your history, and your ancestors, and your spirituality, inclusive with nature. It's part and parcel to everything. It's one thing. Like our ethos is all just connected.
Yeah.
It's just.
I also think the Christian spirituality exploits European altruism.
It does
to a large extent too, and I mean, I'm seeing that to a very hyper accelerated, large degree within a lot of my own personal, relationships and friendships and family members. A lot of people who were kind of right wing, staunch, traditionalist Christians are kind of starting to buy into this whole. Black Lives Matter bullshit, and they're citing, Bible verses and a whole bunch. It's madness to me, and you have to be very kind of esoteric to kind of, say that it's not really real Christianity. I mean, collectively as a large or as a whole speaking, a lot of these people don't kind of see Christianity as ethnic based at all, and they look at it as what is preached within the context of the Bible itself, and
it is an ethnic. It is an ethnic, and it is literally a tribal god of the Jews, of the Israelites, and it is all they did was they said that this god's the god of everybody. Mm-hmm. It's a tribal god. I mean, how could a tribal
god have favored one tribe, or how could a universal god have favored one tribe to fulfill all these prophecies, all the stories of the Old Testament, a testament about the Jews being the chosen people? Well, how can that really be a universalist religion if it's favoring one tribe over all others?
And it actively does this in the Bible. Mm-hmm. What do they do when the Jews escape from? How do they escape from the Egyptians? Well, God kills them. Sends down plagues and all sorts of man. How about when they get to Palestine? What does he do with the people that there? God says, "Don't worry about it. I'll kill them all." Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not a universalist God; it's a tribal God. The first Christians were Jews. They just believed that Jesus was their Messiah. But the problem is, we've gone into esoteric looking at the Bible. I mean, I've done a few articles where I look at some of the Bible. I mean, they ripped off Northern European spirituality and then twisted it. That's what the New Testament is. And I mean, now this could be like a bit of a out there concept, but it could even be, if you want to look at it really deeply, it could even be that it was the New Testament was a deliberate attempt to emulate Northern European heathenism, but twist it from, like I said, the vengeful God, the god of vengeance, like Woden or Vidar, but the god of protecting one's own, god of war, to a god of peace. And that simple change has made it as basically it was the first liberalism, right?
Yeah, I
completely agree with that, and I would say too is that the Old Testament. I agree with what you're saying too. Is that the Old Testament is very ethnocentric and tribal based, but the New Testament is it kind of converts into this universalist spirituality that's all encompassing.
Yeah, and as you'll see with Abrahamic religions, I mean, I'll just look at Islam and Christianity. They have at the basis of their success the destruction of whatever culture they're injecting themselves into. You'll see this in the Northern Crusades. You'll see that with the destruction of our own spiritual sites across all of Europe. You'll see similarities with ISIS, just tearing down statues, tearing down religious sites of whatever.
Not to mention the ADL hate list.
Exactly. Like, I mean, almost every single European spiritual symbol is in the ADL's, hate index. It couldn't be more obvious to those who understand that history.
One thing I will say, that being European, Christianity is dead here. I mean, nobody does it. The only people that are in churches here are old people in my country. There's nobody goes to church. There's been a slight resurgence with some young nationalists trying to say they're Catholic, but they don't go to church. No one's going to church. So what I'm saying is it's very different here in Europe to America. Christianity isn't even really a thing here. as in there isn't like a Christian right or anything. There isn't a Christian right. There isn't really a Christian left. There isn't really a Christian anything. If I go to a church on a Sunday, I'll see maybe a handful of people in their 70s or 80s.
Yep. Well, I think
that's a reality in Europe.
We really have a lot of scathing criticisms of Christianity, and I'm guessing that you would probably agree with just about everything we'd have to say on the topic. So I want to kind of shift and. I'll
tell you what, guys. Do you mind if I just make a drink? Because I'm boiling hot here, and I've just
totally fine.
I'll literally be 2 minutes.
No,
I did type it in the side, but no one was. I don't think anyone read it, so I thought I'd just go for it.
I've got a good question for when you come back, though.
All right, then. All right, I'll be 2 minutes. I promise. 2 minutes.
Should we all take 5? Have ourselves drinks.
Also, Dringer had to jump out too because he's getting ready for his own show.
Yeah,
on
he
his channel coming
mentioned
up.
he mentioned he had to do a show here.
So,
Yeah.
So what do you guys want to do? Dunk on Christianity for the next 2 minutes and then switch gears?
Well, I think we can broach the next topic and then kind of dive into it with Mimir when he's back. One of them that that I really wanted to bring up is just hold on, let me look at my notes. I'm very professional. 1 second.
All right, you can grab those. One of the thoughts that I had as he was discussing this was, how we talk about how Christianity sort of entails cultural erasure. That was one of the things that the Romans didn't do, from my understanding, that they were very religiously tolerant, and that also created all sorts of issues. They enforced their language and economic system and some other things, but cultural or religiously, my understanding is that the Romans were multi-religious or highly tolerant of people, foreign religions becoming part of the empire. So I would actually see that as a weakness. And actually, one of the strengths of Abrahamism, I mean, something that we hate and we should be forever sort of vengeful about, but it is that sort of imperialism where they erase the existing culture is one of the strengths of Abrahamism, and I think that we should see it as such.
And it's also like you see it amongst all of Abrahamic religions. There's the idea of taqiyya in ISIS. You see in cultural inversion in Christianity, and you see it as sheer dominance in Judaism. All
Talmudism, right? It's not overt in Judaism. It's all subvert.
It's exactly like it's really weird. All of it's covert. All of it is under the radar. All of it's like, I think our earlier ancestors, looked at Jesus was like, sure, like add him to the pantheon. We don't care. He seems kind of. It seems kind of silly because
he seems harmless, right? He's some pacifist dude, whatever.
What can he do? And I imagine a lot of the early
it's
missionaries.
Like somebody like when you go and you talk to people about Buddha or whatever, it all comes off as very non-threatening because it's a pacifist religion.
Yeah, it might have some attributes that are similar to some of the gods that we worship, like I'm talking about in the Roman in the Roman period.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is a clever. I mean, that is a clever, realization.
Someone say Mithras. Just kidding.
It is a clever realization that, it has a further success, a fundamental subversion on every single one of those religions. So.
Yeah, and like today, I mean, the movements that we have right now going on are very, they have sort of that mentality. I mean, it's almost like a perpetual year zero type of thing. Like they have to destroy every aspect of the society that came before them in order to implement their utopian vision. It has a very Christian quality to it. As you kind of see it as like a secularization of Christianity, that morality is still there.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's really funny since history has been on a talking point so far earlier in the show. I mean, every single aspect of our ancient history studied from outside of our own people, even just passed down oratory stories. I mean, it's the complete antithesis of what you read in the Bible. It is the complete antithesis.
This is what. Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, no worries. To kind of get on what Grizzly was just saying too, is that it gets down to Nietzsche's master-slave dialectic, to keep that short, since we already covered that in a different stream. But no, I absolutely agree with what you're saying.
And just before you ask your question, Daniel, so just like to just do a final point on what we said before about and don't think I get passionate about things, but I enjoy questions like from Spike. I enjoy that challenge because that's what I see, and this is something I want to bring up. This is the fundamental, right, of being a heathen for me. It's that point when I'm scared, or it's that's where consequence of cowardice came from. That dilemma of, man, they killed their children. What was going on, right? And then that moral dilemma, it troubled me. It's where I'm troubled. It's where I suddenly feel fear. It's where my boldness, I suddenly start to cower. That's what I'm interested in a philosophical sense.
It's a very European
when does my boldness become? When do I suddenly cower away from my own words? That's where I want to challenge myself. Yeah, and that's something I want to address. So, anybody else that wants to like really put me on the spot, like hammer me with a question, I'm good for it. I enjoy that. That's something that I've been called a concentrational, and in my youth, what is that they call you? The oppositional something.
Contrarian? No, contrarian.
No, not really a contrarian. Just I like
controlled opposition. Is
no. I like
this segues in perfectly. You've got a warrior ethos. You want to confront things directly.
Yeah.
So my question that I wanted to ask is one of the things that you get in. One of the themes throughout your videos is that the Northern European cultures, the tribal cultures, that the core of them was heroism and warrior culture. That their entire stream of values that came out of all of the cultures of Northern Europe are essentially warrior cultures, and probably some of the best examples of them in human history. So with that said, one of the things that I've often said on our show is that one of the characteristics of modernity is the absolute, not even the absence of, but sort of there's no place for heroism whatsoever in modernity. And I could give you an example, which would be like, a police officer or a firefighter, if they were to go and do something way out of what their job expected of them, to do something really, really out there and heroic, well, maybe they'd get some news headlines, but ultimately people would be questioning them. People would be suspicious of that person. Why does that person, they'd say that person has a savior complex, or why would you risk your job? And don't you know that it doesn't matter if that building burns down, the person's just going to collect insurance anyway. So in this sort of modern capitalist system, there really is there is no room for warriors. There is no room for heroes. And when people engage in that sort of mentality, they get treated as like kind of laughing stocks. Like you're a pretender, you're a LARPer, you're a
job's worth,
or a video game player, or you watch too many Marvel movies, or people think that it's sort of a psychological illness to embrace heroism.
It's been taken as a taboo to be recognized as heroic or noble or courageous. Like it's been taken as a taboo, and
it's looked at, at the very least, it's looked at with suspicion. I don't know how to frame that all into a question. I had a question, but let's get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, like the modern world, everything has been turned into a mental disorder, right? If it doesn't fit the narrative, firstly, yeah. So, opposition defiance disorder or something, ODD. Yeah, that's what people used to that as a kid.
Is that a real thing?
That's a real thing, right?
Oh, wow.
You got a mental disorder because you disagree, right? I mean, I was anti-authoritarian, and I'm probably more authoritarian now than ever be but it's for a purpose. See? I'm not authoritarian in the fact that I want to tell everybody what to do, because that's not exactly how Europeans work. We're more of a consensus type people. We enjoy a consensus. That doesn't necessarily mean democracy, but what it means is that in our group we like to feel, and I think we hit on these points earlier with this moral justification. Yeah, when we're in that position, we're very strong. Now I'm just trying to remember everything you said there, because there's a few points I wanted to make. But about heroism, yeah, I mean, We got to taste that just now, right? I was just saying that there's a line that we need to, that everybody's got a line when we've got to confront what we're doing collectively to our own personal needs, and instantly people got defensive. Why did they get defensive? Oh yeah, docs over here, docs, and they went to the extreme, which I never said, and so I go, oh yeah, that's good, because they were meeting somewhere where they feared, like I said earlier, you're meeting that point where suddenly your words, you're not so willing to stick by them. Yeah. So what people do is it's actually, so when somebody does do something, so when somebody says, I give out my name, I do it, people get defensive. And I think that's something of the same with what you're talking of heroism, right? It's very easy to mock the hero because it actually exposes something in you that you haven't got anymore. So you mock that firefighter saying, oh, he's just a job's worth, he didn't need to do that, etc., because you wouldn't. And you want to bring that down because you don't want something that you're not capable of to be seen as great because you can't do it. Yeah, you would have acted differently. So it's this skepticism of it, but the skepticism is based on your inadequacy, your inability to reach their targets. So then you'll see it with war, right? Oh yeah, he give his life for what? He give his life for nothing. Yeah, because they're not willing to give their life. Yeah,
they're expressing their own cowardice or moral nihilism or whatever else it may be. Yeah. Interestingly, I'm a bit of a Nietzsche dork, and one of the things he really predicted was that when society would move into an egalitarian phase, that there would be a pulling down of greatness, that sort of an egalitarian society would not tolerate greatness, and he kind of related both of Roman and Germanic cultures of being like great examples of high-minded aristocratic societies that were you pushed individuals to pursue excellence, so that your group became stronger, and the antithesis of that in his view was sort of the he saw communism looming over Europe, and also the effects the long-term effects of Christianity sort of destroying the spirit of the people. And he really pointed out that he basically said in other words that the 20th century wasn't going to tolerate great men, that there would be this leveling, and he used a lot of metaphors to describe like egalitarianism as being like the sea, where there's a certain sea level, there's a certain cap that nothing can really go higher than. And he sort of used imagery of like mountains as being the opposite of that, like the ability to climb ever higher, as opposed to the water, which always runs downstream and goes to kind of unite at a certain limited level. I'm losing my words now, but
a couple of points real quick before Mimir. I want to hear your take on that as well. But first of all, like the conquering of a mountain has been talked about throughout our folklore and our traditions and our oratory history. It's not just it's a metaphysical and a literal sense. It's both of those things. And the sea level that he's talking about, one of the first things that critical theory and kind of cultural Marxist theory sought to inject into Western man was the concept of equality, wherein that exists not in nature. And the outcome is not just that the sea level rises or falls. It actually brings the height down. There's always going to be a reduction to a mean, because you're always going to have those heroes that can't actually act as heroes, so they are always pushed down to that mean level.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read all of Nietzsche. I've read parts of it, and parts I have read are very intriguing, very interesting to me. I should get around to reading, but I'm not a great reader. I mean, that might come as something. I love reading source texts, but other than that, I'm not a great reader. I find if I read too many people's opinions, I get they overtake my own, and I start taking them on. So then it changes my worldview. So I don't know if that's just a strange quirk of mine, but what I saying there is a leveling, right? Water always levels. Yeah, so they're never going to allow anything above it because water's always going to level it out. I mean, we're seeing that, and this is again something it actually ties back right in, and probably why you thought of it ties right back into your last question, where anything above that is seen as suspicious, right? What is that up there? And why is because it questions ourselves, and this is where we've become weak. Yeah, and there's an irony in this, right? The liberals want to be heroes. Yeah, that's what they want to be. When they're pulling down these statues, when these Antifa, they want to be heroes. Yeah, they want to, but they want to be heroes to what they believe are the oppressed. They want to fight for the underdog, which is another European trait. But people misunderstand that. It's not because we just like people that are weak. We like to see adversity over impossible odds. We love it. That's what our heroic myth is about, right? The hero stands there in front of the dragon. He should lose, but he doesn't. So we enjoy seeing the hero overcome. And yes,
but the hero wins though because he has a greater force of spirit, right?
Yeah.
The reason that he slays the dragon is because he's found himself spiritually, and then he sort of ascends. Whereas in this, it's more like they're tapping into more of a feminine aspect of wanting to be a helper or a nurturer, which is totally.
Well, they're not even tapping into a feminine aspect of the Northern European. I mean, there's a Roman quote. I forgot who said it now, but when he talks about the Gauls, he said the Gauls, one Gaul can give a legion a good fight. No, but he says, and if his wife was fighting with him, he'd probably win. Yeah, our women are ferocious. Yeah, and we're seeing they're using it against us. Like I said, they're using it against us. This is why they're mobilizing them, because they are so ferocious. But with what's happening in the leveling, I mean, philosophically, it's to keep everybody down, but they don't believe it. This is the great lie of even communism. It's this idea of this equality that doesn't exist, and they don't even really believe it. It's just it taps into our idea of equality because, like I say, we're people that are probably the most justice-minded on the planet. We don't like unfairness. I mean, they've even shown this in chimps, by the way. If you treat one chimp differently to another for the same action, they don't like it. They get angry. Yeah, there was this one experiment where they go, they're given these little coins, and then the one monkey, well, not monkey, sorry, chimpanzee, he gives the coin and gets a grape, and the other monkey gets a biscuit. Well, he's like, hold on. So he gives them the biscuit back, takes the coin back, and then gives him the coin again, and he still gets a biscuit, and he's getting angry about this. And they've even done experiments where they give them some nuts, and one a rock to smash the nuts open, but they put them in separate cages with only a hole big enough to put the rock through. Well, they give the rock through, and then once they've smashed the nuts, they always share them equally. Yeah, because it's inbuilt to this equality, but and that's it's justice rather than equality. But this is what I'm saying earlier about how they confuse these terms. Do you know what I mean? So what they think is equal. So they're saying we want equality, but they think it means justice, but it doesn't. It means this, as Nietzsche said, they're trying to level us out, but they don't believe that because, and this goes to there are everybody's equal, but some are more equal than others, and we saw this in communism in Russia, right? They preach this great equality, this great sea where everybody's the same, and then but they were the mountains in amongst the sea, yeah, and they were rule. And there's another problem, as we talk about aristocracy. Aristocracy should be proven. I think one of the greatest problems that came from European aristocracy was the idea of inherited aristocracy.
The implantation of an aristocrat via holy means.
In terms of some of our
kings and queens. Yeah.
Or by birth. That's completely unnatural. If you are going to be a king, then you must be able to be a king, right? If you were born because your father was a king, and this goes back to when I said, no matter how mighty the lion, his children still have to fight. But if you say, no, I'm just going to pick this lion's son to be weak, he could be weak. And it actually encourages weakness because he doesn't have to prove himself. Yeah. Why does he have to prove himself? He's already inherited that title. And I think aristocracy, more a meritocracy, right, where everybody's got the ability to get forward, but they've got to prove it. Yeah, and this is where we see the confusion, right? The right is for the aristocracy, the left traditionally is for the average man. Well, the truth is we should all be on a level playing field, and it should be our natural ability and proof of that ability that shows aristocracy. Yeah.
Mhm.
And our people used to have that pursuit of heroism. That was innate. That was inborn. We wanted to become heroes. We wanted to be recognized by our ancestors and by our kin. We wanted this. This was a driving force to what we see now. I mean,
we wanted to be known, and this is another thing that goes back to what we talked about a little bit with what Spike was saying. Right, we wanted to be known. We didn't putting our head below the parapet was the complete opposite. We wanted to be heroes. Tacitus talks about how Germanic heroes would go around. Heroes with their entourage, a great hero that had got renown, would go around just going, "Hey man, I'll fight," even picking underdog fights to prove how freaking great they were. You know what I mean? They were going, "Hey man, you're really outnumbered in this argument with this tribe. We'd like to join you guys in this battle." And Tacitus said this even stopped battles because the other side would go, "Oh no, man, they've got Hans the Great, Hans the champion with them. Let's not fight." So do you get what I'm saying? Like, it was about seeking out where's the most dangerous position I can be, because that most dangerous position is where there's the most nobility to gain, right? I'm going to get more renown.
I forgot which philosopher said this, but he said waiting equals death. Waiting equals death.
Hesitation is death, maybe.
Apathy. A better way to say this: apathy is death.
Yes, and I'm just saying the action of waiting, of seeing what's going on before you act. It can be smart, but if you do it long enough, you're dead. That's the simplicity of it.
Movement is life, stillness is death. But yeah, I mean, so there, what I'm saying is that the traditional hero, like I say, he doesn't wait. He seeks out the most dangerous position because the most dangerous position offers him the most renown. He becomes the greatest hero. Yeah, they didn't stand back going, "Hey man." Well, some people did, but they would never be leaders. They would never have any say. So all their opinions mean nothing.
And history doesn't talk about them.
No, I've argued with people. Sometimes they say, "Oh, you say," and I say, "Listen, you can say whatever you want, but if you're not going to try and if you're not going to try and get your message out, right? If you're not going to try and get your opinion out by putting your neck on the line in some way, you're going to die, and all those great ideas are going to die with you."
And to be just real quick, just to kind of touch on something we talked on earlier, if you can't even say that you love your people and how great we actually are and actually mean it and be sincere about it, I would make this statement. It may not be true, but I would look at that as like, you think our people are already dead and lost. Like, there was no shame in being proud of our past, and that's something that you can even do now to your friends and family. You can do it in such a way that sparks something in them without sounding ethno-narcissistic or whatever hell kind of word you're terrified of being called.
Yeah,
you could do this very simply.
Well, I was speaking to a friend and he put it really well because of things that are happening with his life. He says, he doesn't want to make a statement about what he believes to everybody. So, because that's almost like saying you must believe it too. But if ever he's questioned on it, he's going to tell the truth. And I think that's the first step. It's not about doxing yourself. So if somebody directly questions you on what are you afraid of it then? Making a bold statement, like putting your name out there and making a Twitter post saying this is what I believe, that's trying to say, that's trying to get attention, right? But how many people are willing to, with people they know, like family or friends, be honest there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. That's a good point. And I think that's something that is kind of lost within these circles, is that when we kind of discuss some of these ideas, they kind of take that as going out and putting yourself out there IRL and putting your beliefs out there on like a YouTube channel. But what we're kind of discussing is community building within your own real life situations, within your family and your friends and people who are actually close with you in real life.
And in which you care about. I mean, I already said that one I think Evelyn said it. I mean, to not hate, which I mean, you
Yeah,
said it best, actually, Mimir. I mean, you said love it has only love only has value if it is discriminatory, and to not
yes,
show your love is in my opinion even worse.
yes, I agree, and you're right there as well, Will. For most of us, don't have a YouTube channel. I mean, we've been doing it for ages. We've been trying our best. We've only got 8,000 followers. So the reality of doxing yourself in that way is very little anyway. Do you get what I mean? Unless you're going to get unless you say something absolutely stupid. But most of what we're talking about, and most people that are listening, and even for myself, most of my interactions are with people that I meet every day. And that's where we've got to start being honest. And that's where it actually really means anything anyway. Online is great and all good and well, and we can have discussions, and I can talk with you guys here, and we can have a great discussion. But it's how we apply this discussion, each and every one of us, to our daily lives. Do you know what I mean? That's where it's really going to start changing things. Yeah, it's how we apply what we talk about in our actual life. It's no good me sitting here talking about this, but then going down the road and just faking it and pretending. I mean, I'd feel like the biggest charlatan on the planet. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't want to.
No, I agree with your sentiment completely. I think if people don't apply these ideas in their real life, then it is a LARP. Like if you're not actually living these ideals that you espouse to believe online, then your entire persona is a LARP, basically.
Yeah, it's a quote to Havamal, I believe. Sorrow eats at the heart of a man who cannot tell his own soul. Mm-hmm. Basically, I mean, what I gather from that is if you can't actually say what's on your mind, you're going to be torn down and torn down and torn down to the point of the apathy that we see many of our people facing. And the only thing you can do to counter that and to make sure that doesn't happen is to literally just speak your own mind. And you can do it in such a caring and I don't want to sound soft or whatever, but you talk of the love of your people. That's the most simple thing you can do. Share your history.
It's not about saying it. So I mean, I've talked to some friends about this, and I'm overly emotional. I mean, if you watch some of the streams I do, sometimes my voice will start cracking. I have to try and get myself together. I'm over emotional, sentimental, romantic. I'm all of those things, and I've got no shame in them either. Sometimes that makes me overly emotional and whatever. It doesn't matter because that's what I feel, and I let those fears out. And I think that's a great quote from the Havamal you said there. And also it speaks to the idea of, and I think your interpretation was brilliant there, but also it speaks to the being honest with yourself of who you are. Don't try and, if you're not the physical fighter, you don't have to be, but be what you are and be damn good at it. Yeah.
But without your personal integrity, you have nothing. And I really literally mean that. Without your own integrity, your own viewpoint, without exercising that opinion, without giving your whole heart into what you're speaking of, you are limiting yourself, and you're limiting your own kin and your family, your people, and all the rest.
And play to your strengths. If you're emotional, if you're overly emotional, if that's what you are, if you're romantic, sentimental, show that. Play to your strengths. Don't try and follow the crowd like I'm based and I do this and all this and shit. That's all crowd following, right? Nobody notices another person standing in the crowd. Yeah. Our ancestors, like you said, we had the heroic course. We want to stand out from the crowd. The way you stand out is by playing to the strengths, really taking the time to analyze who you are, analyze what you are, and not confronting the points where you're scared, but also the bits where you excel.
Here to you, Mimir. Confront could be defined as facing something without flinching or avoiding it. That is the definition of confront, and it holds close ties to the definition of responsibility. Yeah, the responsibility that you have, even if you don't want to recognize it, of your people in our current situation. And I mean, that is the consequence of cowardice, not being responsible enough to even care about your own survival and the survival of your people. That's just I don't know.
Anybody's got children. I mean, just to speak to that point you made there, anybody's got children. You look at what's happening. When I said it earlier, what's happening in 10 years' time? If we fail to make an impact Yeah. If no matter what we do, nothing changes, it carries on along this trajectory. What's happening? Where are our children going to be in 10 years? How about 20 years? Where are their children going to be? I mean, what's the world we are giving them?
Will we even be able to have children in 20 years?
Yeah, but
It's an actual question that you can ask in the current paradigm. I mean,
the way it's going, I mean, the way it's going, it's insanity. And as crazy as that sounds, what you just said there, if you went back 20, 30 years and told them some of the things that were going on, they'd laugh at you and think you were insane. I would have if you told me 20, and I knew about some of this stuff.
And let me clarify, I didn't even mean that conspiratorially. I mean, will society, if current things just are allowed unchecked, will society say it's okay for white people to have babies?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant as well.
Well, they're already saying it's not okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
It's morally virtuous to miscegenate, things like that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and not have children. It's noble, right? Because you're saving the planet.
The great irony and the great inversion that you see is we are the only ones saving this planet, and even the altruism that we don't like. I mean, the populations of Africa, of the native Indians of America, every single third world culture has literally been tripled or quadrupled because of us. I mean,
our technology, etc. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's a reality. I mean, appropriating culture. I mean, that's going to be the biggest joke on the planet, right? I mean, look at everybody, and then look at where all that technology came from. It all came from us. I mean, that's probably our biggest mistake was our altruism in giving away our technology as we did. Well, that was actually through capitalism, because it had value, right? And people wanted to get wealthy off it. That's how it actually spread.
And on the show, we actually did talk about the concept of the noble savage and rising them up to a state akin to us, and it's just man, yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Will, you were saying something before.
No, actually, I was going to say I have a few more general points to make. I don't know about the rest of the panel, but yeah, maybe if people in chat have any questions, they can post those and we can ask Mimir those here in a bit.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good for a bit. Yeah, that's no problem.
Well, speaking of which, can I start that ball rolling, or did you have something to say, Dagus? Because I did have a question from our Telegram group, which, by the way, we're gonna have a lot of links in the description of the show afterwards. A lot of Mimir's channels and a lot of our stuff as well. But one of the first questions, unless Dagus, you had something to ask.
I think he's good.
Yeah, okay. Go for it.
He's probably grabbing a drink.
So Talia, who's actually in the chat now, spoke in our Telegram group. She said, "I'd like to know," and this is probably a Mimir question. She's probably right. Is there any special characteristics that designate the bog, or if it can be like any bog? And I think I don't know if you understand the meme of the bog, or the historical significance of the bog. Do you have some historical clout to back that?
Well, I mean, I suppose this is taken that the bog is a negative, that you put people in the bog.
Exactly, putting people in the
actually,
bog.
Now, I think that was actually, this might be a bit of a tangent and a bit different, but I actually believe that if we look at the historical evidence, that the bog was actually not a bad place at all to put people. I think it may have become that later in the late Middle Ages, possibly. But if you look at earlier bog burials, they're actually probably nobility, and in very rare cases, children with severe illness. The bog was seen as it's a watery area. If you look at Bronze Age, Neolithic, Iron Age,
the Celts loved that cross section of land and water.
Yeah, you give to many votive offerings are put in the water. Water is the place of the dead, by the way, for people that don't really understand it in religion. It's the place of the dead, and it's where you can connect with the dead. so you're giving your vote off as it's the other world, right? It's the underworld or the overworld because it reflects the sky as well, right? So when they were first putting these people in there, they were sacrifices, but some of the early ones, like I said, there's one in Ireland where the person was bigger and stronger his diet was extremely rich. He had no wear on his hands because of the preservation of the bog, and I can talk about that a little bit too. Had no wear on his hands. He was clearly an aristocrat. He was clearly a leader, but he was.
Didn't they also throw gold in there as well, or like?
Oh yeah, most of the votive offerings are put in bogs.
You know, it's funny that the concept of tossing copper into a well was actually a survival mechanism to purify water in the Bronze Age Celtic.
I'm not so sure about that because there's just as much wood, bone, flint, and gold.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So I think that might have been a bit of a misconception, but we still do the votive offering. But I've got a live stream of votive offerings. It is up on YouTube actually, so you can. But
is that on Mimir's Council?
No, Mimir's Brunnr. It's a live stream called a votive offerings, and where I just talk about them a little bit. But votive offerings, so. I probably didn't answer the question properly there, but yeah, there's a lot more to waterways. Waterways are great significance for a heathen. It's a place of the dead. It's the way you connect, and this is why, even at Christianity, right, we built them on islands, temples, churches, and they're normally always built on islands because you're surrounded by the dead. We'd put them around all of our stone circles, so the dead were always with us. So. Islands in amongst the sea are lands of the living amongst the dead, and where we put a ring or a lake is the dead amongst the living. So this is why they were always venerated, and these are always very spiritual places, and it's why we always you see these big stone monuments now, but there were always a ring of water around them.
No, that's fascinating. I think I don't want to speak for Talia, but I think that question might have been derived from what was our perceived consequence, let's say, of things degenerative to society. Like, I think there's a great meme, like if there's someone that degenerates society, that they would be.
Well, I would say, hold up. I think the question was like, what character trait would make somebody completely unworthy of being in our tribe to the point where we would just throw them off a cliff?
Okay. I think in the past it would have been cowardice. Because that's the root of all the other evils. Yeah, a cowardly man can never defend his family because he's a coward, right? A cowardice is the root of all evils because it allows all other evils to portray. Yeah, heroic men don't allow anything to happen. So when a man does bad, they'll stand in and say, "Hey, you stop doing that. I'm going to put an axe to your head," right?
And you can see this amongst modern Europeans. Like, just look at a pub from 50 years ago or even before, and you see a group of guys talking, and a story comes up where someone was weak or cowardly, and that was shamed. This is a shameful thing.
Yeah, and you encourage more, right? My nana taught me probably one of the most valuable lessons of my life when I was probably about 8-9 years old. I was playing in a park with my brother, and two bigger kids came over, and they basically bullied us and told us to leave. And I left. I was only a young boy. And I left and I went home, and I was crying, and I told my nana that these boys had picked on me, hoping that she'd help me. She didn't help me. She told me that if I didn't go out there and confront them, that she'd beat me. Yeah.
Good name.
So I went out there. And I fought those boys with my brother, and we won, and we got the park. And when we come back, my nan says, the reason I did that, and we were crying going there. We were terrified. But when I come back, she says, the reason I told you that is because if they kicked you off that park today, they kick you off that park anytime they wanted. And that's the consequence of cowardice. Once you allow a behavior, it will continue. Yeah? And if you don't like that behavior,
that's what we're seeing everywhere right now.
That's what we're seeing everywhere now, and that was the lesson I was taught by my nana when I was about 7, 8 years old.
Yeah, my mother said something similar. She said, "If I see you come home with a black eye, I'll know that you didn't do enough." So, like if I just came home with a black eye and crying, she'd be like, "Did you hit him back?"
Yeah, you're gonna fight back.
No, then she'd be like, if anyone touches you, you make sure to know that you're the stronger of them.
Yeah, one of the proudest moments my nana ever looked at me was when my brother got beat up in a pub, and I ran in there. Now she mocked me because this is the savagery of the European woman, right? My brother got beat up in a pub. The whole pub had set about him. It got funny. I ran there from another pub drunk, and I ran into this pub, and like and I walk in with a declaration, right? Someone's beat my brother. I couldn't find him. Who's having it? I get inside. I grab one. A stool goes over my head, and I get beaten bad. Yeah. And the next day I'm at home, and I'm recovering, all wounded and everything. My nan looks at me and she mocks me. Yeah, she says, "You're like the cavalry without the spear." But even though her words were mocking me, right? I saw the look in her eye, how proud she was of me. Yeah, that no matter the odds or whatever, I ran to the defense of my brother, and that's what she wanted to see. She didn't care about the rest, because she knew with that attitude, we will always, when she passed on, she knew we'd always protect each other. Yeah. And that's a mother's love. And in this instance, my nana, that's the love of a woman, wanting to leave her children in a position where she knows they can look after themselves, where they will not become the victims. And if they are becoming the victims of violence, they rally together for each other.
That's amazing. And I think that's even becoming more rare. I was lucky enough to grow up with a group of individuals that we all grew up together since birth. Like, we had families that knew each other, and every single aspect was tribal. It was defense of our own. Like, if I saw one of my guys being attacked, I would run right in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without consequence, without knowledge of consequence, because I didn't even really know what I was getting into. You just go in.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter, because the consequence of you not going in is always worse. It might, in that instance, you might save your skin for that moment, but what happens is your group has become weaker then. And if we go back a few thousand years, that's lethal. Yeah, when your group gets a reputation for being cowardly, your group's not going to last very long, okay? There's going to be a lot of tribes that could do without extra land. They've got extra mouths to feed. And they're going to pick the path of least resistance. And that's the most cowardly tribe out there, because they know they can bully you off it. Yeah. And it's the same, I know you're talking about with your mates, but it's the same kind of pecking orders that we all grew up in, when we were younger. Are you allowed on this street? Well, that's the kind of mentality, it's kind of like gang mentality, but, it's just kids, right? It's not going to, but there's much more realization of this pecking order at that age, if you know what I mean. You feel it, right?
It was like really natural too. It wasn't that you hesitated. It wasn't that you
peaks in America. It peaks in middle school. That's when all the fighting happens. It's between the ages of 12 and 15 is when all the fighting happens. It's just part of just a natural part of growing up.
Yeah, and it learns us lessons for life. We start to realize what happens if we don't stand up for ourselves. And it's not good, right? How many bullied kids kill themselves, right? They've done to themselves worse than any of that bully could ever do to them, because it's this psychological process, and it's where it puts you psychologically. And it's it's going to set the standard for your life. Yeah. If you allow yourself to be bullied as a kid, you're probably going to get bullied for the rest of your life, unless you, as we said earlier, unless you confront that fear. Yeah, you go, what is it? And a lot of people can't, so they, and I'm, and I wish these people would reach out, because it's not over. And I want to tell everybody that it doesn't matter what you think you are, how weak you think you are, weak mentally, weak physically, or whatever. Right? Reach out to people. Because we love you, right? We here, we love our folk, and we want them all to be strong, because, like we said earlier, this is beyond you little group here now, and this is one of the things. It's attack on all people of European ethnic origin. Yeah, it doesn't matter where they are in the world, and we need as many of our brothers and sisters with us as we can get. Yeah, and we need them all to be strong. So, we've got to be here to help them with videos, with talks, etc., as much as we can, anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would also ask, since we're kind of getting close to wrapping it up here, I guess one of the last questions I had for you is, what kind of practical advice would you give our people to survive and endure the wolf age and all this crazy stuff we're going through?
I'm not so sure on that myself. I mean, I'm trying my best, just like everybody else is. But like I say, I mean, survival's one thing, but we've got to do it in a way that is befitting of us. I suppose it depends how we determine surviving. I mean, we could probably survive by digging a hole, right, and hiding in it. I don't know, but I think what we've got to do is face it. You know, well, you mentioned the Evola, ride the tiger. Well, that saying comes from it's actually a Chinese saying, where it's if you get on the tiger, it's not easy to eat. It's not so easy to get off. And what Evola's trying to say is he's choosing to get on his tiger. He knows he can't get off, but he don't care because he's going to ride the tiger. Yeah, he's going to meet life. He's going to meet life head on. And I think that's what we should do. I don't think we should be necessarily even worrying about the overall. I think we need to become what we are. We need to be the best that we can be. And I think the rest will take care of itself.
And the truest to ourselves that we can possibly be, and that means unraveling those onion layers of not us. I guess I would say, become the most fundamentally European that you can possibly be, and I think we will have that much more success, because that's what drove the success in the first place.
And play to your strengths. Everybody's got gifts. Everybody. Some are born naturally brave in physical confrontation. Some are born with the gift of words. Some are born with gifts of building. Play to your strengths. That's how communities are built. Everybody has their strengths. Not everybody can be the warrior, but
or the warrior poet like yourself.
Yeah,
come on,
or a poet. Yeah, I mean, but what I'm saying is not everybody can be but a community needs everybody. Yeah, and that's what we need to know. Build our communities. That's what I was trying to say earlier. Don't all try to be the same. Don't all try to be this archetype that you see on Twitter that you want to follow. Show them what you've got. Show me what you've got. Show me your talents. That's what I want to see. I don't want someone
just on that, and then the community building aspect. There's normies that are looking to form community with me. They know my stances. They know exactly my beliefs. They all have their own strengths. They know what they want to do, but they want to be around me because they know that I have love of my people, and that's the same thing that they do, even if it's not as to the degree, or if they know exactly the same things I do. Like, just simply saying things that I believe to them, simply advocating for them is enough for them to be like, I want to be a part of your future.
Yeah, well, what I was saying earlier about talking to people around you, one of the most important reasons that if things do go bad, people would naturally look to the guy that A, warned them about it, and B, shows the ability that might have the answers. So you will, as things that you've been saying start to come to fruition, they're going to actually gravitate. The normie people that you spoke to are going to start gravitating towards you, because they're going to see you as a natural leader, because you know more about it than them.
The first week that this BLM started happening, I got 7 calls from family members and friends that I had personal discussions with in the past, and they said, I mean, to sum up, basically what they said was, you saw this. What's the next step?
Yeah, you become a natural leader, and this is what's so important to talk to everybody, because you're going to be a focal point for these people. They're going to come to you for answers. They're going to come to you for you know what I mean? So that's why it's really important.
I think we got a question in chat, Grizzly, if you want to read that for Mimir.
Yeah, let me...
I queued it up. It's on screen.
Yeah, so what advice might you give to young white American males that come from working class backgrounds? And let me double on top of that, because this is a question that we had in our show notes as well. In a broken home, what would you also suggest? What would be your advice to them as well?
So, a rougher upbringing or a hard... I mean, I come from a working class background, but my home was not broken. My home was full of love. Yeah, I had a they weren't always on the same page as me, but their love was always the main. I never felt unloved, and I think that's
I'll second that as well. Yeah.
I do. My heart bleeds for those that go up in it where they didn't get that kind of love, because without that it can be very hard. So it'd be hard for me, to explain what to do for those. But what I'd say is that not everybody's like their upbringing, I suppose, and there's a lot of good people out there. And surround yourself with good people. If you come from a broken home, find good people and try and break that cycle, because I know that there can be some negative cycles associated with that. But if you're just from a working class background, then the world's your oyster. There's nothing to stop you. You've got all, in the modern age of the internet, and you can learn anything. You can be anything. And those working class people, if you go back just a few generations, what we consider, these would, literally working class people that did physical manual jobs at long hours. If you look back at some of the things these people even wrote, these so-called simple men, they'd put most modern academics to shame.
100%, yeah.
Because these guys, when you're from a working class background, you're going to work with your hands and things. But like I say, observational reality is, in fact, probably the greatest lesson you can get, because that's going to show you common sense. That's going to show you the way the world works. So observe and adapt, but there's nothing stopping you from being anything you want, really. And especially in our communities, white working class is that, they're already, nobody cares about them anymore. The left doesn't care about the white working class anymore. Traditionally in the UK, we have a much more bigger class divide. Labour Party was all about the white working class, 20 years ago. And now it's got this new little thing to fawn over, right? The immigrants, the white working class, are now considered idiot. They're mocked by these. So, you're in a tough position. So, but that's where I believe our strength is. We've got these people in America, like the trailer trash, people call it. Well, now these are white people that have been disadvantaged, and they're my people. They're the people that have got the least to lose and the most to gain. If you're not speaking to them or you're talking down to them, then you don't understand revolution.
Yeah, I would back that. Just personally, my father was he left his home when he was 18 years old, and he became a carpenter, and then he became a custom carpenter. He learned carpentry, he learned stonework, he learned custom masonry, which is actually in our blood, from France and from Germany. He makes more now as a working class blue collar white man than most college grads will ever see in their future. And this is something to consider. Like, Daga said something a few weeks ago. He said, the aristocracy of the future will be the white man and woman with their white families. And I truly believe that. And what creates that is these custom artisans, these people in the working class that build and construct and create works of art, and even a house is a work of art. Even a job well done in a electrician field or an HVAC system, these are works of art to most people who can look at art objectively and say this is.
Not only that, is that a lot of the aristocracy of antiquity, they kind of they weren't hand fed a lot of the things that a lot of the aristocratic class or the youths of today were. Things back then were merit based. So if you have a merit based aristocracy, that's completely antithetical to kind of like the aristocracy we see today, which is decadent.
And just to counter the narrative, like rich suburban white people, I'm just going to generalize here real quick, will pay top dollar for a European man who knows his shit. Pardon my French, but my dad's job is basically fixing everyone else's poor jobs, from their the Mexican laborers or the Guatemalan immigrants that did a quickie job on whatever they're doing. And he goes in and he says, I'm going to charge 5 times more. I'm going to charge 5 times more, and I'm going to do it perfectly, and you're going to love it. And they pay.
Yeah. You go to Saudi Arabia or even many Asian countries, go to their building sites and look at the tradesmen. They're all European. And these are the people, these Arab sheiks have got more money than anything, right? Who do they get over to build their stuff? It's Europeans, skilled Europeans, right? And they don't do that because of any racial bias, because they're not white. If they do it because they want the best. Yeah. Look at it. You talk about like we talk about working class and poor Americans from the past. Well, look at the price of American folk art now from like the late 1800s. It's phenomenal amounts of money you can pay for American folk art. That's what they call it. They call it folk art because it's just like built by some unnamed guy that didn't have a fancy shop, but it's still amazing. Yeah, and it goes for quite a large price because the people were doing this just in their pastime, building these crazy creations just because they could.
Exactly, and that's the other thing. Don't pigeon yourself if you're blue collar into the fact that you're blue collar. Like, show your artisanship, show your quality of work, and people will pay the most ridiculous sums of money because this doesn't exist anywhere else. It truly doesn't. If you have a high skillsmanship, if you have a high communication ability, if you smile, if you shake hands, these are things that they will never have seen with any other company.
Like we said earlier as well, right? What's a community, right? What's a community full of warriors if they haven't got a good blacksmith? You know what I mean? You need things to function, and for a community to work, you need everybody. So, like I say, play to your strengths. Show us what you've got. Show the community what you've got, and let's do it because we need to support each other as well. So if somebody's talented, I mean, how many things do I have to buy in my daily life that possibly somebody in our circles that's talented I could do, and I could just pay a little bit more because it's a bit more skilled. I mean, we need to be building those types of things because when we build those types of things, we look more like a community. We look like literally today in the UK. I don't know if it was in America too, but we had Black Pound Day, right, in the UK. Basically, like the blacks in the UK are just promoting their own businesses. Everyone's going, I'm going to buy off you and all these black people. I'm just going to buy off these black people. Well, we need to do something like that too, right?
We really do, and to be honest, I don't want to even sound too cocky, but if you look at their workmanship compared to Europeans, it's not even comparable. Let's just be honest.
I mean, I think a lot of this Black Pound Day, like a lot of the stuff, it's probably just crap they brought from somewhere else anyway. It's not actually artisan. No one's actually done it. I don't think they've made anything. We're just selling some cheap clothes from China or something. I don't know, but but that's a lot of it, like with Etsy and things like that. You go on there, half of it, it's all meant to be handmade. Half it comes from China, I think, on that side. I don't think there's hardly any.
It's true. Yeah, most of it's supposed to just be artisanal.
Too, is that by supporting our guys when we buy certain goods and services, it's undermining how do I say international finance. It's undermining the capitalist system that exploits a lot of these things and gives you shitty products for cheap labor, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's all about the consumerism. They want you to buy it repeatedly, right? In the past, we made things to last. That's why we paid a lot of money. You could have what we would consider a poor household today.
And by the way, it's not just in the past, Mimir. This is something I want to solidify for anyone who's in a blue-collar skill set right now. People will still pay a price that you can't even fathom if it's custom, if it's done well, if they trust the person. And we all know that even despite all this anti-European sentiment, they still understand who they actually trust and who they want around them. Like you said, the world is your oyster. I want to hammer that home, because if anyone is in a blue-collar job, you have at this moment more of an opportunity to make more money than any college graduate that you'll see come out today.
Yeah, well, with consumerism, there's false value. I can go and buy that wardrobe for $50, yeah, but it's probably going to break, it's going to wobble a bit. It's not going. I could spend $400 on one that'll last me a lifetime. That I can take to wherever I go. I can take it with me, yeah, and I can hand it down to my children, yeah. It might be $1,000, whatever. But what I'm saying is, consumers give this false. These cheap prices are all false. It doesn't. You're gonna have to keep buying it again. Yeah.
I have a friend who's young. He's 20. He's actually my age. He's mid-30s. He made a mahogany table from hand. Quarter inch, or 2-inch quarter sawn mahogany, and it was just he did traditional methods of combining them. He did dovetail, and he didn't even use unnatural glue. He used natural glue.
Yeah.
He carved the legs by hand. He charged for that one piece $7,000 and was purchased within 2 days of it going up.
Yeah.
The demand for craftsmanship is well above, especially if the wealthy and the aristocrats, far and above anything else you'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got to excel. Somebody just mentioned, Ignat just mentioned there, it's become very difficult because of Mexican labor. That's why you've got to excel. Yeah, because you've got to be the best, because they're going to flood in the country with loads of mediocre. Yeah,
and despite what modernity tells you, beauty is objective. It is objective. Aesthetics are objective. We can discern what is beautiful and what is not with our own eye.
There could be an argument there between the ethnicities of what they find objectively. So there could be the subjective amongst the racial groups. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously, some things that certain racial groups will produce do not look aesthetically pleasing to me, but they do to them. So do you know?
Yeah,
so
exactly. I would qualify that within our own group, but that's also the group that is still
objective
predominant.
within the tribe, subjective without.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's we're talking about the folk soul and how we want to look at it. We've been you guys here are all from America, but if you've got any ancestry in England, then we're related somehow. Yeah, there's some relation. We're going to have some of the same ancestors. So thus, we're molded by the past. We're molded by the experience, and genetics is also molded by the experience. So we are the embodiment of their experiences. So, and how that shaped us means that we're all going to find similar. I mean, this is how Carl Jung's, his kind of folk soul, or the collective unconscious, which was folkish, by the way. He proved this in a letter that he wrote to an Englishwoman when she was going to go and study with a Russian, actually. And she said, you can't learn off him because he's from a different group. You're from the Germanic group. You know what I mean? But it's how that works, right? So the dreams the symbols in your dreams can only have the same meaning to everybody within that group, but another group, those symbols mean something completely different. So if an African is reading Jung and trying to understand their dreams from Jung's work, they've got no chance, because
exactly. And
those symbols don't mean the same.
You'll see this even in pop culture, how they're trying to change Native European fantasy, which is based off of our own mythos, and they're like trying to like change it so it fits their own. Because I mean, objectively to me, and pretty much anyone I've ever known that is gorgeous, like a Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, or illustrations of fairies or fae folk, or this is all objectively gorgeous to us. And you're right.
You're talking about black mermaids and all that.
Yeah, they have to change it. I've even seen stories of recently in news articles of them saying, even some of our most organically European folklore, they're trying to change so that it fits like the witch doctor in Africa who says the lightning is whatever.
Mm-hmm. So any more?
Yeah. Any more questions? I think we're on the 2.5 hour mark. But any more last minute questions from Mimir before we say our adieus?
Nope. There are 500,000 other things that we could talk about, but I think we should leave it at that. And yeah. I mean, there were so many topics within paganism, and it seems like you're also a guy who just sort of shares, similar values as us. And I'm sure we could go on, till the sun comes up. But
probably,
yeah. Let's.
Do you have
for Mimir? That's also closer.
Do you have any new projects or anything people can be looking forward to in the future?
We've always got 100 projects going on, but no, nothing really. I I used to say what we were working on, but sometimes they haven't even been finished yet, and something else completely different comes up. So I suppose you just have to wait and see what happens next. But we've got a lot of projects we're working on for both Mimir's Brunnr and Mimir's Council. And that's all I say is Mimir's Council, because a lot of people are still not aware that we do more political videos that are.
It's not your Mimir Brunnir content. It's not the short videos very impactful. It's long, right?
Longer videos generally, but we explain things like we have one, ethnic nationalism, what is it? And we explain it, we were saying earlier, it's still aimed at trying to explain these concepts that normies would consider more radical, but putting them in terms that are natural and that they can understand. Yeah. And showing that it's not about hate, it's all about love, right? Because that's the point. Yeah, it is about love. And so they're probably a bit more risky to share with your normie friends, but we do believe that some of them. I mean, we've done a lot of live streams there as well, because I've got a few friends like you guys here, and we get together and have a chat sometimes just about what's going on, if you know what I mean. So just some of that kind of content too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd be shocked what my normie friends are sending me in text messages nowadays. So, to be honest, I don't even think that would raise alarm to them at this point. So that's good news, actually.
Yeah.
Mimir did share a bunch of his links, which we're going to put into the description after the show. He does have something for Libri, right? That's going on now.
Yeah, there is a competition to win a shirt and some LBC, which is the cryptocurrency that Libri uses. Libri is a video platform, for those that don't know, and we've nearly got as many subs there now as we have on YouTube, and it's growing at a much faster rate, so it's going to overtake soon. It's a place we put a lot of effort in, but if you want to enter the competition, all you've got to do is you can find it on our community page. There'll be a link. You just click the link to join Libri, and it will automatically follow us, and then just send me an email with the email you used. I can confirm that. But the instructions are all there. If you go onto our community page on YouTube or our Facebook page or our Twitter page, it's there. And even our website, there's a way so you can find out how to enter. But yeah, and you could win a shirt and some LBC, and there will be some runners-up prizes of LBC too.
That's great. Unironically, that's how I found you in the first place, was online on your website. Are some of your articles not made into videos? Yeah,
no, there's loads of articles not made into videos. Some are just articles for articles' sake. Well, I just look at something from the past, and like I say, I'm no expert, right? Sometimes I know bits about things, and I want to really explore it. So what I do is basically the article is what I found, yeah, and I can use other knowledge there to add to it over the years. And this is how it starts. You build up knowledge over time. And it helps you understand things. It's always good to look back, because I could read a myth 10 years ago, but now I've built up all this other knowledge. When I reread it, I see all these hidden things within it, if you know what I mean, that I couldn't see before.
Yeah, totally.
It'd be like that.
Well, I think no other questions in the chat right now. Go ahead, Dagon.
I like to do closing statements, if you guys don't mind. We can each just kind of go around and give a couple of
I love that. Yeah.
Final thoughts. I'll kick it off, and then we'll leave Mimir for last, and then close it off. I thought that there were some really interesting discussions tonight that kind of require some balance and nuance. I think one of the first things that came up was how much exposure to take on versus how much to be courageous and to be open. We have this value of openness, but we can't function as open and totally open in public because the system is against us. So that's one of those careful lines that we're going to have to walk. And then also, Mimir, we're talking about kind of this white inherent drive towards virtue, and also this instinctual need for fairness. Well, that creates some difficulties with trying to be tribalist. So we have to find how to walk that line also between universalism and tribalism. I don't think that like we can pitch something that's 100% tribalist and be successful. We have to find some way to sort of merge those two together, where we're creating some sort of we're putting something out there that wants to be meritocratic, but also tribalist at the same time. It's going to be difficult, but I think we have to get there too. So those are two things that I'm going to kind of take away from this conversation and sort of contemplate on. Probably never come up with real answers for them, but I think they're important questions. So I guess my thing is, I'm going to walk away and do some intellectual work on some of the thought-provoking things Mimir said tonight. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I always enjoy hearing your perspective on a lot of these topics. And yeah, if you guys aren't already subscribed to his channels, make sure to subscribe to Mimir's Brunnr and Mimir's Council. He's got excellent folkish content on there.
Agreed. Alex, any closing statements?
I don't have a whole lot to say. Well, I mean, it was a joy listening to the entirety of the show. I spent most of the time just listening, and it was a joy just hearing everything that was talked about. I recommend your channel. I was recently introduced to it, so I'm I have not been able to watch many of your videos, but the ones I have watched, I've really enjoyed, and I give you props. They are very well put together and well made. Very high production value. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. And it was a joy being on tonight and talking to you.
It's also good, always as always, having you on, Alex. I guess I would just say, as I usually do, so pardon me if I sound like a broken record. It is important to understand our past. I think that is the underlying foundation of everything missing in the West is a disregard word, not a disregard, but just a misunderstanding or a complete absence of knowledge of who we actually are. And I think when a people knows who they are, it's inherent that their survival instincts kick in. I think that is the most fundamental thing. And this is why I always break it down back to brass tacks, back to exactly the root of our people, because at that point in our history, that's when we were the most European, I guess you could say. And that sounds hyperbolic, that sounds a little weird, but everything outside of that has been layers and layers and layers of things put upon our people that are not quite us. And it's really important to fully understand who we are. That's why the pursuit of history and the pursuit of knowledge of our past, and even the philosophers like Nietzsche and even Evola, this is why they're important, because they discuss these things. And even some of the historians that produce the kind of Germanic romanticism, some of those authors have quite a lot to say. And just to end off, I would say embrace your past, embrace whatever traditions were passed down to you that could be traced to us. Embrace your heritage, embrace your ancestry, embrace who you are. Without the firm foundation of all of that, we are leaves drifting endlessly in a wind, going along with whatever the wind, basically says you should go. I guess that's my closing remarks. Mimir?
Well, firstly, thank you for all the words, nice words you said, and thanks for inviting me on. I enjoyed the chat very much, and I think I'll just speak to a couple of points. Like Dagger said about the things he's going to take away, I think we could sum that quite up is in, where the metal meets the road, or the rubber meets the road. That's where you'll find the solutions to all of your problems in the things that give you the most trouble. Yeah. You're not going to, I think we can sometimes get lax on our ideals, thinking that we've already worked it out. But the truth is, when you get that disconnect, when something makes you feel uncomfortable or where you're not sure where to go, that's where you've got to put your effort, because that's the thing holding you back. And that's why you can't answer it, or it's giving you that trouble. And with what you said there, Grizzly Saxon, of course, you are the literal embodiment of everything that your ancestry has gone through. I said this on a stream once. A lot of people don't know this. Your physical form is defined by what happened in the past. When the first shoes were being worn, our foot structure changed because of the shoe. And this is not just a physical change that happens with what we do, but everything your ancestors did literally changed you. Change your physical form and your mentality. You are its embodiment. You are the absolute embodiment of everything that has gone before, and you will change everything that comes after. Okay, so you're an important place in that. So yeah, find that gives you the most that you have the most trouble with, and understand it. And remember how special you are. In closing.
All right. Well, thank you, Mimir. Thank you, panel. And thank you, chat. And everyone have a great night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Night, guys. Be well.